What is up, RotoGrinders? Week 12, 2.5 plus hours of NFL DFS conversation. The story of this slate is there's a lot of value running backs out there. There's some potential weather that's lurking out there. I'll go ahead and drop Chief Meteorologist Kevin Roth's weather report into the chat right now. What's up, chat? Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. Do all the things, hit all the buttons. We appreciate all that stuff. Joining me today, 2/3 of the Tournament Takes podcast, which was I actually got a chance to listen to it this week. I like to support the show, Kirkwood, when I can. You guys were especially spicy.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was our worst show, personally.
I was putting it nicely. You were just you're. I don't know. I feel like there was like a pre-show bit where like you were all intentionally saying something without saying something. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't even remember.
Well, yeah, it was past your bedtime these days. I think you guys recorded.
Yeah, we did it at midnight. Yeah.
Yeah. You were just sort of. You're all sort of on each other's throats.
Yeah, Bobby and I were going at it. JSU was poking the bear. There was a lot of things going on.
Yeah. I had to check the scorecards at the end of that show, but welcome to the show. Kirkwood, and we got Bobby as well. Bobby, do you remember recording your Tournament Takes podcast?
Yeah, I remember recording it. I think I lost on the scorecard. I was getting pretty hammered, taking it from all directions, but we move on.
Yeah, you guys are all. It was especially. You know what it is? It's week 12. You've had enough of each other's shit at this point. It's like you say the same things over, and now you're more comfortable with each other too. So. That's how the show is going to progress too. I think we'll see in the back end of the weeks as far. 6 weeks left regular season, 6, 7. I'm not exactly sure. I went to UCF. My math isn't very good. Although, by the way, UCF. How did we almost blow a game versus USF yesterday? I'm sure all you guys screw Ohio State, Michigan State. No, Michigan. UCF versus USF. That was it's a close one as always. Kirkwood, you like to give the rundown. You like to give the rundown as far as the slate and. It's all about a plethora of running back value. There's no great game. There's no, wow, I got to get a piece of this game. And the best teams are positioned to blow out some other teams, some of them. The Chiefs, especially, the Chiefs are, their team total is double of what the Rams team total is. The Rams, Robinson not expected to play for what it's worth. Of course, Cooper Kupp is out. We're not expecting Justin Fields to go. There was a chance that Chase could go. It doesn't seem likely Jamar is going to go. Lenny's going to be out. That's one of the value plays we're going to be talking about. What's his name was called up? Used to play for the Gio Bernard. Yeah, Undertaker.gif. He might be getting some run to some extent. Josh Jacobs got to watch that one. Late add to the injury report. It is a late game. We'll see how that goes. But I think Schefter said he's progressing in the right direction as far as Josh Jacobs. Debo is no one that kind of monitor, but it seems like he's been positive as well as far as the right direction. Marquise Brown expected back. Pitch count, I think, was thrown out there. So we'll see how many snaps he gets to play. But, yeah, Kirkwood, do your thing. Because, 48.5? Is that our biggest total on the board right now? At least that's what it was when I wrote this up yesterday. So maybe it's changed. But Arizona Chargers the best game as far as the total that I see.
Yes, sir. Okay, week 12. We got 11 games. We've got no Josh Allen, no Jalen Hurts, no Bills, no Eagles, because of Thanksgiving Day. We've got no over 50-point totals. We've got 48.5 is the top one, at least the last time that I checked, like you, Dino. And so that's the Chargers at Arizona. It's a good game. Then we also have the Raiders at Seattle, which is 47.5 points, and then Houston at Miami, 47 points. We've got a little bit of weather all over the place. We've got some other games below that. Everything is pretty much below that from a total standpoint. It goes down. I think the next highest is 43.5. Actually, because things are dropping. The Cleveland Bucks game has been dropping, so that's down to 42.5. So we've got the two highest team totals that both are at least a 14-point favorite. 14-point favorite for Miami, 15-point favorite for the Chiefs. Other than that, as far as roster construction this week, it's kind of all over the place, right? You can kind of cook however you want, because we've got a plethora of chalk running back good plays, but not all of them are going to be super chalk. I think Jeff Wilson is going to be monster chalk. And then the other ones are going to follow behind, but that leaves out the top end RBs, which we do have on this slate. And then we have some really good wide receiver plays that are, that are high priced. Devante Adams, great play. I think at 8,600. Tyreek Hill, 8,800. Best matchup on the slate today is for Tyreek Hill, but again, they're 14-point favorites. Now he could do it in the first half alone, right? Like it wouldn't shock you if he has 2 monster touchdowns. But and then we've got a ton of good plays in like every single salary price point. We've got a stacked mid-tier, with guys like Chris Godwin, Cortland Sutton being like the only target. We've got, we can get, Keenan Allen, how do I forget? It's like the ultimate mid-tier play.
Oh, yeah.
Then we still have scary Terry McLaurin. So we got like all over that. And then we got the lower end, which goes, I'd say anywhere from, to me, Hinton is in play at, cheap 3,700. Actually, even Irwin is in play at 3K. So if we want to go all the way down, but then we go, we've got Garrett Wilson at 43, Treylon Burks at 42, up to DJ Moore at 5K. So it's like we have everything. We also have tight ends, the 2 top tight ends. We got Kelsey. And then we've got Mark Andrews, just seems a little bit too cheap at 6,500 sitting there, right?
Yeah, today's the day where you absolutely have money to spend for him. It'll be interesting as far as the conversation. I want to bring Bobby in as well. What is your take as far as the general overview? And but it is a little different. You mentioned Wilson. Wilson will be the crazy chalk on FanDuel. I'm sorry, on DK. And FanDuel, it's not like a full lock and load. He's still like the best play probably, but he's 7-7 over there. FanDuel's not messing around with that price. So he at least got a pretty big price bump. It takes you a second to think about it, but he's still, going to land in your cash game, playing cash games on FanDuel. What do you have?
I think you'd probably fade him more on FanDuel, right? Like you're not really looking to fade on DraftKings. We've seen these under 6K running backs hit at extraordinary rate this year. So I would be pretty.
Well, when you say fade though, like what does that mean? Because that means different things. Different.
Or like under, like on FanDuel, you could be under the field. I feel like just because he's better priced.
Yeah, CJ Kaltenbach. The CJ Kaltenbach, he made the definition. Yeah.
Or you could just totally X.
Because
totally X.
No, totally X is different. The CJ Kaltenbach went through this years ago and made the official definition is just under the field. Because he sat there on a show. And he was like, "This is the easiest fade ever." And then he ended up playing him like a tiny bit under the field.
Yeah. and that's technically, again, that's why I think it's important to clarify, the verbiage. Because, technically, I guess you're kind of fading somebody if you're playing them at 15%, as if they're like 35% owned, right? Like, I guess that's a half a fade. I don't know what we call that. But it's not a full fade, right? A full fade is like you're just Xing them out. And I don't think I would not X out Jeff Wilson. And that sounds like and we should mention like Mostert's out if you're just making up out of your turkey stoop or whatever. And then missed it.
Let's throw the last wrinkle in that I didn't even get to. Not only do we have tight ends from every price point, but then we have the chalkiest of all chalk defensive plays.
Well, I think that's going to change a little bit because, okay, I'm curious what you think because I want to pull up our ownership. I think people are going to be shifting to some Jets. The Jets, okay, Kevin Roth, the absolute worst weather game today. Jets, it got an orange. It looks like an absolute soaker in New York, rain all game, increasingly heavy as the game goes on. I think they're retiring or they're honoring Darrell Revis at halftime for what it's worth too. Washington, heavy rain pregame. He said he got very, very close to putting orange on this for what it's worth as far as Washington. Tennessee, 15 miles per hour, sustained winds at kickoff, dropping to 10 by the end of the game. Some very light showers, scattered showers in Seattle, scattered showers around Cleveland. Winds will be breezy, sustained 10 to 15, gust over 25. We're at the point where weather matters at least some degree, especially as far as the Jets. Also, Chicago, is it like Semien? Who's going to be good, the quarterback today for the Bears? It's not going to be somebody good. We're assuming that Fields.
Semien.
Yeah, and the Jets, I think, so you're assuming that everybody's just going to play the Chiefs, and I get that too because they're playing against, I guess, not really a quarterback. I can't remember the guy's name. We're not sure.
Okay, so I think the Chiefs will still be the highest because it's easier to get. Excuse me. Yeah. All right.
Need some water?
I'm back.
Okay.
So they'll be the chalkiest, and then the Jets will get the second amount, and then no one feels good about any other plays. Everyone else is too expensive, and all the cheap ones are really don't feel good whatsoever.
By the way, boots on the ground. Producer Steve in chat says the wind is howling here in Tennessee, and I did see Dan Bach, who's also in Tennessee, mentioned how windy it was there. Again, Roth did say, and a lot of these stadiums are built to sustain winds a little bit better, especially if they're higher up. And I don't know I'm not an architect. I'm not George Costanza. Didn't even pretend to be one. But I think it subdues winds to some degree, depending on. But we are expecting a decent amount of winds in Tennessee, 15 miles per hour sustained. Roth, I assume, will update this at some point as well. Does this change your approach at all, Bobby, as far as the weather? I think it's at least incremental, worth considering.
I think it's incremental, yeah. The Burrow's a decision point for me. So if it's windy in Tennessee, maybe I'll just do secondaries in that case. I just think they're going to throw at a pretty high rate with mixing out. But still, if there's wind, I think it could cap his ceiling a little bit. So I think there might be other directions I like to go.
I like having just the overall conversation in the slate. Let's just do that. If at some point it comes up organically, who your favorite receivers, we'll talk about that too. Chat, if you want to hear us talk about a certain player, throw them out. Have them join the conversation. Why aren't we talking about so-and-so? Well, we'll talk about him if it makes sense. Greg in chat's like, are people forgetting that it's Jeff Wilson? Opportunity is king, right, Kirkwood? And Jeff Wilson's actually pretty good. He just got like a really generic name, and I don't think he didn't come into the league with a lot of like hype. That's my understanding. He wasn't like this big pedigree running back. So we like Jeff Wilson. The decision point is more ownership than anything else. Like we think he's in a great position. Home, every box you want checked. Massive total, home favorite. He's going to get 20 touches. He's almost definitely the red zone guy. Mostert's not there. So what is the competition? The dudes are they just kind of what's the guy's name that they dusted off? They had last couple of years. He's still kind of sticking around. Ahmed and Gaskin, like those guys have had their time to some degree with Miami, but he's pretty clearly ahead. Coach traded for Wilson. Wilson jumped Mostert when Mostert was healthy, basically. I'm not here doubting his talent for what. Just a quick way of saying that. Did you give your official take as far as Wilson? You did. You're as in on him, and that's that.
Me, I'm definitely in on him. Or are you talking to Bobby?
Yeah, I was okay. Now let's move beyond Wilson and let's talk about White. White for Tampa Bay. The absence of Uncle Lenny. Lenny's not going to be there. We know Cleveland, one of the best defenses to have a matchup against as far as a running perspective. Now they did call up or sign Gio Bernard. Deshaun Vaughn is lurking. This Tampa Bay offense has not been spectacular, just as a general thought. It's underwhelmed on the season. Where are you on that, Kirkwood? Because are you willing to just take all these chalk running backs? And of course, like they all can't be full chalk because at some point you run out of positions, spots to play them. But White is probably next man up, right, as far as second most popular running back.
Yeah, and he's the one I'm most scared of, to be honest with you, because once he had the backfield to himself last week, and then they kind of implemented Keyshawn Vaughn into his role. And so he was like the between the tackles runner. Now, Bobby made a good point on our podcast that this, he's a pass catching back from college, like he always has been. But what they showed me last week is they just plugged him in as the between the runner, and then they call up Giovanni Bernard, which is like another signal to me that makes me a little bit nervous because you want this passing down work with Brady. However, he's 5,100. He's not going to be a bad play. You know what I mean? Like this is his backfield. It's the best. It's one of the best possible matchups. Cleveland just can't stop anyone in the run. So I do like it, and then we get down to some of the other guys too that are a little even. Latavius Murray, we're going to have the conversation about. But I mean, we have so many plays here. So if there's like one play that I could see like not working out in the end, to me, it would be Rashad White, but he could also smash. So I don't have like a really strong take. I'm just a little bit scared on him.
Okay. I as much as I love the UCF guys, like to hype him up, Latavius Murray, like 30-year-old-ish, I feel a little sketch about it. Also attached to a terrible offense there in Denver. He's kind of sort of somewhat last man standing, right? Marlon Mack is there too. Let's get Bobby in this conversation. Let's pull up the ownership here as far as running backs. Wilson, we're seeing 38% owned on DK, 11-game slate. White at 34. I want to get your White take here, Bobby, and then we can kind of work our way down because I'm a little bit sketchy about Murray. I'm a little bit sketchy about Pirine, just a little bit. Like those are the ones I don't trust as much. But the ownership also reflects that too.
Yeah, I think everyone has pretty much the same feelings that you do.
Yeah.
Rashad White of the three chalk running backs to me seems like the shakiest for basically the reasons that Kirk just laid out. Like they called up Gio. We haven't seen him working in the passing game, although he can, but we haven't really seen it, right? Yeah, Wilson is just like we kind of hit on why he's such a good play. Kenneth Walker, I really like as well. Kenneth Walker and Wilson I'd prioritize before White. And then like Lat Murray doesn't look like he's going to get ownership. Kirky kind of talked about this on the show. If he's going to project really well and people aren't going to play him, I'm probably not playing him in my 150, but in smaller field stuff, I think he's fine. It's because there's no one else there, right? And he's 5K. Pirine, he's the one. Like I think there's guys around Pirine, Michael Carter, Antonio Gibson, guys that you can kind of pivot off of to get away from Pirine. Chris Evans is also in that backfield. I think he's rather interesting for large field stuff. But that's kind of where I'm at running back. And I think there is possibility to spend up to like say an Eckler. I'm a little nervous on I'm trying to figure out how I should play Eckler. If I play Eckler and Keenan should be at most one. Mike Williams isn't there, so it's not really the same situation that it has been in the past, where that's kind of they've kind of capped each other's ceilings. But yeah, Henry is another one. Like if the weather's really bad there, this is the time of year Henry gets going. And the guy that's going overlooked seems like it's CMC, right? Like the price is what it is, but the price is a lot more lax at the wide receiver position. So I think you could make a case this week out of like the previous weeks. It really hasn't been this way where we can get up to some of these stud running backs or wide receivers for that matter.
There's one guy I really like you didn't mention, but I want to get I'm curious if Kirkwood's going to say him or not. We'll talk about it in a second. But Kirkwood, your official, come on, man. You're not playing Latavius Murray like on your main lineup. You can't do that in 2022, can you? Or maybe you can.
I could also lose. You know, I've lost many slates many times, and I've made a lot worse plays than Latavius Murray. It's a volume play with him, right? Like, you know, there's no more Melvin Gordon. It's just he's not explosive whatsoever. So you're going to have to grind that out. But, you know, he's going to be, if they get down the goal line, it's going to be his show. So, you know, all you need are these guys, if they're 5K, you just need them to fall in the end zone once, right? And like, you're good.
Well, you say that some weeks, yes, but this week the competition's tougher. So you might have to do more than that.
Yeah, maybe not. Right?
Maybe.
The guy I love personally, I love James Conner.
That's the guy I wanted to hear. Go ahead.
Yeah. So first of all, we know the Chargers. So this is a great game environment. I think the way, you know, I granted, I'm going to throw this out there that just warn people that I play way too much of Arizona Cardinals games. Right? Like I'm always like, you know,
you love Kyler.
I'm always game stacking their games, but this is like the week where it really finally feels good. You know, and Connor, the Chargers can't stop anyone. 30th in DVOA versus the run. He had 96% snaps in week 10. Now, the last week, he had like 70-something%, but it was meaningless. It was a complete blowout in San Francisco and Mexico, right? So they just threw the towel in. And so I'm expecting if this game is close for him to have like a freaking 85 to 90% snap rate and just get pounded the rock. And, you know, and the offense should perform better with Hollywood Brown back, with Hopkins. Like they finally have like two good receivers. Now they're missing the Dortch Rondell, you know, that kind of that slot guy. But I expect from the tight ends, McBride to pick that up to be the guy over the middle, you know. And, you know, he was a talented pass catching tight end in college. So, you know, he hasn't dropped the ball yet this season. He's caught every single target. Now he hasn't seen many targets. Yeah, like he hasn't. He's like under 10. He hasn't seen many targets. But
I haven't dropped the target either. But go ahead.
Yeah, you know, either has head chopper, but anyway. So I expect their offense to be humming. I like both sides of this game. I see that workload. I think that he just has massive touchdown equity. Kyler. From a running standpoint, I don't think we can expect the full full Kyler Murray healthy experience because of the hamstring. Maybe he is, maybe it's fine, but the hamstring is not something you want to really mess with too much. So I just think he's going to have massive usage in a game that I want to be all in on. So James Conner at 6,600 is like, I've been kind of trying to prioritize him in builds. Now, if I can't there's other builds I like. So I have definitely played around with the 2.5K, with Murray and Rashad.
What does it
White. Not much. So I've actually, I'm probably not playing Murray, but I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah.
I found some builds that I like, but and I can't wait to get into this Garrett Wilson talk now with this weather, because he's a huge decision point on this slate too.
He is. I'm curious to get your thoughts on that, and also like another running back that on another site would be pretty interesting, right? But I think Michael Carter is going to be mostly neglected on that Jet team, but I think he's fine. On the other side, Montgomery, his opportunity is not worse. It's just that so many other guys have elevated and they passed them. Everything is dependent upon the week, but some of these players, like you could take Latavius Murray and you could throw him in last week. He would have been so much more popular. Like people were flocking, including myself, that Baltimore situation that opened up. And it turned out to be probably the worst play ever in the history of DFS plays. When you consider ownership of Kenyon Drake was like 35, 40, 50% in some contests, because that we were thirsty for value. We couldn't find it. It was nowhere to, and like, oh, here's maybe something we can latch onto. Like if you throw Latavius this week and the last week, people would have gravitated toward it. But I don't need to, we're not as desperate. It's just kind of my thought. Bobby, you didn't give your thought as far as Connor, and I'm on board. That's the guy I wanted Kirkwood to say. I want somebody to say him.
I like Connor. Obviously, he's in a really good spot. Didn't really hit on him because I don't know. Like I just put him into my pool. I think Kirk made a good case for him. Chargers really struggling versus the run. He's just a tough play for me usually, but with seeing that kind of snap share, I think you kind of got to get him in. I know people were talking about him up pretty. I just love D-Hop in that game too. Like that's pretty much where I want to be at.
You can play them both though, right?
Yeah, you can play them both. I would imagine. Yeah,
because the offense should be really concentrated. It's one of the few games in the dome. You don't have to worry about weather. It's one of the few games. It's the highest total, and it should be theoretically close. They'll be punching back and forth at each other. You got some late game equity sweat. If you want to pivot to some stuff, if something happens in your first lineups, gives you some versatility. I love Connor in that game. And, at the goal line, typically maybe Murray be more likely on like a run pass option or like on an option just in general. But maybe who knows what the deal with his hamstring. Whatever the difference is, or I think there's a slightly better chance that Connor runs one in as opposed to previous weeks. I don't know what the difference is. No idea. Not privy to the medicals, but I think Connor is just a really, really strong play. Some names being thrown out in chat. Don Yeezy says, I like CMC. Nobody's playing CMC today. Yeah, you mentioned him, Bobby. I believe you talked about CMC. He's fine. It's expensive. My favorite big spend is like, isn't Derrick Henry just going to get like 30 carries today? Like that's going to happen, right? Or 30 touches, 30 opportunities, however you want to phrase that. Why not just play him instead of CMC? I like them both, but I don't know. Give me all the volume with Henry. Anybody?
Yeah, I like Henry and CMC stuff to kind of get them into a script together just because of basically how they're priced, and a lot of this value at running backs pretty hard to pass up. But yeah, if I had to say who I preferred, it'd probably be Henry.
Let's see. Kirkwood Swaggy in chat says Connor or White. Like them both, but I prefer Connor.
Yeah, I do too. And again, they're different prices, at least on DraftKings. Now, I don't think we touched enough on David Montgomery.
You're a resident David Montgomery.
Surprise. I always love David Montgomery.
I was just going to ask you, and somebody was asking about the weather. Does that hurt him? I don't think necessarily. I think the offense overall just really might struggle with Trevor Siemian and tough weather. So
they might just pound David, and they might just pound David Montgomery for a ridiculous amount of workload. And
the Jets can lock that down. The Jets have a good defense.
Or maybe he'll slip on this field and he breaks through. But he's electric. But 60. Last week he was the mega chalk, and that was with, he was a little bit cheaper, and that was obviously the context. The slate was different. We didn't have all of these running back plays. But that was with Fields, like a healthy running Fields. Now, this week, you throw that out. So I mean, this just seems like he's going to get a monster workload. No one's talking about him, and he finds the end zone. He could end up being a complete difference maker today.
Let's see. Is this too much Chargers for you, Kirkwood? Alan wants to know Eckler, Allen, Palmer. Too many Chargers with Herbert. You're double stacking them, and you get the running back as well. Is that too much going on there for you?
No, because Eckler gets a massive pass game share, so I don't think so. And Keenan Allen's just priced way too cheap, and so did he say Palmer also though?
Yeah, Eckler, Allen, Palmer. Is that too much with Herbert? So
that's a little dicey, but like I'm game stacking this game, but I'm doing it with two. But I also will get when we get the tight ends. I love the tight end in this game. 2 tight ends in this game.
Yeah. By the way, should we just say as far as lineup construction, Bobby, having a hard time. All the running back value we're talking about, we've got a touchdown receiver to some degree, but it feels like certainly in cash you're playing 3 running backs. Are you set up on any sort of parameters where your utility spot is a running back, or it's just sort of whatever falls, it falls? If you're just going to run the optimizer, it's almost definitely going to give you 3 running backs, just the way that the week is set up. How are you handling that?
For me, it's pretty much wherever it falls, it falls. I do have like wide receiver plays around Garrett Wilson that I have interest in that'll hit in the flex. Because I think that's a little bit Garrett Wilson chalk seems a little shaky, and we have a little lighter pricing at the wide receiver position this week than we have had in previous weeks.
Garrett Wilson was like the cheap receiver to kind of make stuff work. There is some weather there. I don't know how much that's going to scare people off. We're currently projecting him at 21%, the third highest projected receiver, right below Keenan Allen and Tyreek Hill, right above Higgins, McLaurin, and Hopkins. Who are your pivots away? I'm curious. Who are your pivots away in the low 4s as far as
they're not all in the low 4s, but definitely like these Chiefs receivers if you're going down. Justin Watson, I think, is interesting. Sky Moore. Marquise Goodwin at 3.5. But then above him, I think that you can go to say a Darnell Mooney. There's other guys too. I'm trying to pull up my stuff. Marquise Valdes-Scantling, Julio Jones. Like there's guys in that range. Donovan Peoples-Jones. There's guys around him. Nico Collins, if you're looking for some push. I don't know how much. Like Kyle Allen's a tough play, but Nico Collins is in that range. DeAndre Carter, Demarcus Robinson. There's guys there. But yeah,
you mentioned Burks for Tennessee, who's coming off a nice game.
Yeah, Treylon. Yeah, that's another one I'm going to have a good bit of. So I really like Treylon
too.
Is anybody playing a Ram today? A Ram. I'm hearing silence.
I don't see why you would.
I just price just because theoretically they're going to move the ball, they're going to gain you some yards in theory, and they have cheap receivers basically. There's opportunity for Jefferson. Robinson expected to be out. Of course, Kupp is out, but their offense overall should be an absolute disaster. An 18 total seems too high is their current projection. Skowronek, he flopped last week. If you played him, I'm just sort of thinking like a cheap way, or the Arizona guys. Like you're talking about that game, Kirkwood. I was looking at AJ Green and Robbie Anderson on Yahoo. I wasn't happy about it. That's the appropriate reaction.
AJ Green did see 9 targets last week.
For what? Yeah, but that was because they just peppered him in the end of the when it was just completely dead. The game was
good to get the context.
Why would they let him chill? He was mopping up that game. I didn't watch the back.
Yeah, he was mopping up. Completely. They were just they took D-Hop was out, and they just AJ Green was the number 1 receiver there.
What about Drake London at 4.9?
I mean, there's a stacked area.
Pitches out though, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's the opportunity should be there. I don't know Pruitt's and their other and Ferkser. Theoretically, London probably should see an extra target or two. But like you say, he gets 40% of the target share. I'm making that number up. But what's 40% of 12? That's the target share is not the same for everybody. The pie as far as actual balls being thrown. Not great weather there too. But I'm curious. What do you think, Kirkwood, as far as London? I love the talent. I
like London, and they don't throw the ball. But I played London last week, and I started to get a little too confident when he scored the opening touchdown, and then they just never threw him another ball the rest of the game. But he's the number one. He has to be by default now the number one receiver. I mean, he is the one receiver, but they don't have that tight end. They don't have Pitts to rely on. So I like him. I like DJ Moore a ton at 5K.
Talk me into that one because I
just hoping that Darnold is somewhat competent in this game, and like he is, like if you're trying to throw for your job, right? Like you're getting your chance again, and you already have a connection with DJ Moore. I mean, you're gonna just try to get the ball to DJ Moore. He's the only good receiver on this team. So at 5, I mean, there's just a massive target share opportunity. It's not the greatest matchup against Denver, but it can be done. There's also
you like Sutton on the other side of that game.
I do. I like that as a secondary stack a lot.
That's what I was looking at. I was looking at like
Moore. I think Moore is a very good call. I like Moore a good bit.
And the halftime is 3-0, and like you're like, well, why did I do this? But go ahead.
I like two cheapies too. I like Irwin for 3K. I mean, he's the number. With no chase back, he got in the end zone the other game. He's building some more chemistry, I'd say, with Burrow. I get it that maybe the weather's a little tough, but they're not. He's going to be open. They're not going to lock him down. They're not going to try to lock him. I mean, they're going to be all over T. Higgins.
What percent of the snaps does he take, this Irwin character? Was he on the field a good bit?
Yeah, he is. But
he's on for like 70% of the snaps. I think I read that might be incorrect, but let me check.
I had not considered him. I'm pretty sure I saw he score a touchdown last week, if I'm not mistaken.
70% of the snaps. Yep, you're right, Bobby.
Better than Hinton?
I like Hinton a lot too. And Hinton's 37. It just depends what you need. I think they're both playable. I think they're, I have a lineup right now I absolutely love. It just makes me feel really good looking at it. And it has Kendall Hinton in it.
So Doug brings up a good question. Juju coming back from his concussion, is an interesting play. I like him as far as Kansas City. And then there's Hollywood Brown coming back as far as his, they're saying pitch count. Who knows how many balls, how many balls will be thrown his way, how many actual snaps will be taken. But like DK makes you think about it because they're giving you a discount. It's built in 5-3. And the thing with Hollywood, he just needs one play, right? He can catch that 70-yarder, and whatever he gets on top of that is gravy, right? What are our thoughts there, Bobby, as far as Juju versus Hollywood? You like this price for Hollywood at 5-3? It says DK specific.
Yeah, I worry about the pitch count. It's nice that he'll probably be in the slot, right? I think that's where he was having his most success. But now you're adding Hopkins back in the mix. Obviously, prefer Hopkins, but I'm like Kirkwood. I really like that game. So getting to a bunch of these guys, I think, makes sense. I think you take the risk on Brown if you feel frisky.
You have a take on that, Kirkwood?
I'm not playing Brown.
Yeah.
If he kills me, he kills me. I just look at him as it makes this offense a little bit better, and it makes me like the other guys around him better. But, again, I'm kind of locked in on my build right now. I'm playing Hopkins like 100%.
Yeah, I love Hopkins.
By far.
What I also want to do is the lineup I love, I'm able to squeeze Devante Adams in there. And is he a must today, Devante Adams? That's what I want to talk about.
What does that mean? Because must means what? If you're playing one lineup, he must be in your one lineup, or like you're not locking him in for 10 lineups.
It just makes me feel really good. Like I had two builds. I'm using Gerald Everett at tight end because I love him at tight end. Arizona is just the easiest matchup for opposing tight ends. He's kind of in a range where no one really wants to play him, right? He's not the super cheap end, and he's not the high end. And I think he's going to go overlooked in this game in the nut spot. And then, but if I go down to McBride, who I like now, I can get Devante Adams and in my game stack.
You like Devante more than you like Tyreek?
Yes, but that's also
because salary at some point comes into play.
Yeah, I do like Devante Adams more than Tyreek. I like them both, but like I just worry about the blowout for Miami.
Yeah, but how do they get to the blowout?
Yeah, and so it's like I'll play Tyreek if I don't have Jeff Wilson, but this build has Jeff Wilson, so I'm not playing Tyreek.
Yeah, Bobby, somebody was asking about that in chat. I apologize, I don't remember who it was, but the idea of running two doubles as opposed and not playing Wilson, is that something you're interested in doing?
I think that's very much in play. I'm not doing it enough, I don't think, but
yeah,
I think that if you're playing, I think Kirky kind of hit on it. Like if you're playing Tyreek, I would be trying to get away from Wilson, right? Because if Tyreek is going to get there and they're not going to be pushed, then he has to catch a pretty long bomb, right? So 2 pretty long bombs takes away from Wilson in that instance, and running backs loaded. So
I was asking about Rams, and like nobody wants any Rams, and I assume you guys are playing Chiefs, so like you're not forcing run backs in that game. Bobby, are you forcing run backs with Miami?
I don't think you need to force a run back there.
I don't think so. Well, neither, right?
I don't think you need to force a run back in either situation.
Yeah, I mean, I'll play it, but I'm not forcing it. Yeah, is that sort of where we're at on that?
Yeah, I also like Kyle Allen's quarterbacking for Houston. So if you want to differentiate Wilson, I think playing the Dolphins D is interesting.
They're the chalk on Yahoo, Kirkwood. I'm playing some Yahoo today. They're what, $10 over there, the Dolphins?
12.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's too cheap.
The Bears are $10.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're playing cash on Yahoo,
yeah, I'm so tilted from last week where I loved my lineup. I thought I was super sharp, fading everyone loves to play Dameon Pierce. I was like, okay, I'll play JT. You guys can have your Dameon Pierce. And then unfortunately, and I also won the other chalk wide receiver battle, but it made me have to play Pittsburgh Steelers for a dollar short than Washington. I was like, they should be fine, and then Washington nukes the slate, and all these freaking projection slaves beat me.
Don Yeezy wants to know, Kirkwood, power rank these 3 running backs on DK. Pacheco, who doesn't catch the ball, that's his big issue there with Kansas City. Like, they just do not throw the ball to him, but they're really trying to establish him as the RB1. Of course, CEH is gone. They're also projected to be well ahead in this game. So Pacheco, White for Tampa, and then Murray for Denver. I have Murray 3rd. It's probably White, Pacheco, Murray for me. What do you say?
White, Murray, Pacheco. But I get Pacheco. It's just tough for me to play if I don't think he's going to get passing game work. And I also just get scared. Like, at the core, the Kansas City Chiefs are a passing team. And we've always played this angle for years with this is CEH's week. He's in the best possible matchup. He's got touchdown regression coming up, right? And then what do? They throw the little shovel pass to Kelsey.
McKinnon.
They'll use Burton or somebody will end up getting their fullback will get the touchdown or something. I've seen the show plenty of times, so I'm just gonna rank him 3rd. I get it. It's like one of the top possible matchups, best game scripts for him. I just never seen it actually implemented and work with the Chiefs. So,
Bobby, how much are we straying as far as quarterbacks? So we keep him with the pretty clear, like Tua, Lamar, Mahomes, Burrow, Geno. Like, we going off the board much? I know you have an affinity for Tom Brady. However, Kirkwood feels about Kyler. That's how you feel about Tom Brady. You were hinting that you might play some Brady again on your podcast the other night. Flop lag or
I don't know. It's Brady's look better, right? He's right under chalk Geno. That weather, but Brady's a bad weather quarterback traditionally. For me right now, I have him in my pool, but I don't know. I still have the regulars. I don't think I'm playing Geno for what it's worth, and I think I'm off Burrow now. Also, you take into consideration, like with Brady, they're going to have to basically throw the ball, I feel like, more. I feel like they just will, just because of the situation with Fournette not being in there. The weather might kind of hinder that, but I think that their passer rate over expectation will be elevated at the end of the week. So I don't mind Brady.
I'll drop that into the chat one more time as far as the weather link if you want to read that. Kevin Roth has that game in Cleveland at yellow. Winds will be breezy, sustained 10 to 15, gust over 25, scattered showers around as well. If you guys are hanging out in the chat, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on those notifications, hit all the things. That is much appreciated. 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes or so will be relieved by Erik and SquirrelPatrol. And then for crunch time, I believe you got Kristi, Andre, and TJ. Some more questions are kind of sprinkling on through. What's your quarterback pool today, Kirkwood? I assume it's Herbert and Kyler. It's probably your starting point. Yeah, well, and feel free to go from beyond that. You've kind of hinted that that's one of your favorite games on the board.
Yeah, it's Herbert, it's Kyler. It's Lamar. Nobody's playing Lamar. So
It's very weird that no one's going to play Lamar today.
It's worked out for like 10 weeks in a row. He hasn't.
I'd definitely be over on Lamar.
It's a good martingale spot, you know.
Yeah.
I like him a lot on FanDuel where the price is a little bit better, but yeah.
Yeah, and he's pretty cheap on Yahoo at 33, I think he is.
Yeah.
Tom Brady, I'm gonna back Bobby up here in this one.
Oh boy.
I'm kind of in on Brady this week, and I say kind of. I think, first of all, I don't think people have watched enough of the Bucs games. Everyone's like, he's terrible, he's terrible. His receivers have dropped so many easy catches from him that it's like it just makes you feel like he deserves better. And he always gets better. I mean, he's old. It takes him a little while to warm up, right? Like he gets better. His pieces are getting healthier, at least from the receiving. Like Julio Jones is actually playing right now. And Godwin is healthy. And there's, so this is when they turn it up a notch. So at low ownership, I get it. The problem is it's easy for the run game in this matchup. And also the weather probably plays a hint, but I like the idea of Brady at 5,800 as a low-owned play. But
you can use Trey McBride. You can use something like that who's got great hands. He hasn't dropped the pass all season long.
It's true. My number one quarterback play is Herbert this week.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with. I mean, he's certainly on the podium. Do you have to spell? I mean, you like Keenan?
I'm not playing Geno. I'm just not doing it. I should be playing Geno. And I know it's gonna I'm sure the Blitz loves Geno. It always does. And I'm gonna look in there and everyone's gonna be going, "Thank you, Cardi. Thank you. The Blitz Optimal got me second place in this GPP and this and that." And I'm gonna be on tilt. But it's the best possible matchup. The Raiders are 32nd DVOA versus the pass, third in fantasy points allowed to QBs. The craziest thing is I was screwing around on Pro Football Focus, and Geno trails only Patrick Mahomes in passer rating this season. Like I was like, how is that even possible? Like I didn't even, like it's like I get it. He's been like decent, but I think what it is like the one game I really went heavy on him and stacked him was that game against Arizona, and it was just the biggest bust ever. So that's like always stayed on me. But he's 6K. He allows you to do a lot. He's 7th in yards per attempt. So he's like top 10 in like everything. And an elite in some different categories. Like he's played very good. I'd rather go Kenneth Walker to play this game because I think he could nuke the slate from a running back position, with a couple of if he breaks. I mean, that guy is tough to tackle.
Some would say he's electric.
Yeah, he is electric.
He's electric.
Not sure if he's more electric than David Montgomery, but
incrementally more. So let's see, Bobby. John's got a question. This is kind of like your wheelhouse. Burks, Garrett Wilson, or Nico Collins?
I think Garrett Wilson's going to be the play that everyone goes to. I don't mind pivoting to Burks.
Collins, not so much, right? Yeah.
Collins, I'm not. I have Collins in, but I'm about to take him out.
Moki wants to know where the Davis Mills love is. Well, asked his coach. He's not playing football.
I replied on the bench.
Yeah, I mean
I'm surprised they benched him for what it's worth.
Do you think he's been good?
He just has no one around him. Like he's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, he's also not good, but it's not his fault. 100%.
He's the best out of that class, I would say.
Out of all the quarterbacks that were drafted 2 years ago, is that right?
I think so. I think coming into the year, he probably was. Yeah.
I feel like he's regressed though.
He's regressed because there's no one around him.
Who's the other guys? Wilson. Didn't Denver pick a quarterback in that draft? It's a terrible quarterback draft. I think we should start with. Wasn't it a really bad quarterback draft in 2021?
I don't know. I guess just for argument's sake, I think that it's I don't understand why they sat him. He's not Wilson, the Jets Wilson. You know what I mean? Like I feel like he's earned enough to be on that team for them to struggle and to not be benched.
Okay, so Mac Jones, Justin Fields. Come on.
Oh, yeah, Fields. So, yeah, Fields, yeah. I'll keep missing on Fields.
Yes, and Trevor Lawrence, I think, is better than him, too. We'll see. He's another guy it's hard to evaluate because the rest of his team is kind of meh. Kirkwood, who plays the slot with Dortch out for Arizona?
I'm hoping it's McBride.
They're going to split him out as if he's a wide receiver?
That's what I'm hoping.
You feel confident in that?
This is Mackey Award winner.
This isn't your bit. That's somebody else's bit.
I know. That's what
The MFN Mackey Award. Let's see. Why are we off Burrow because of the weather? Did we say we're off Burrow? Who said we're off Burrow? I didn't hear that.
I just said that I'm not as high on him as I was if the win's going to be. I removed him.
Yeah, I'm not. If I like him, I like him, and I'm not running away. I might bump down like my shares, but the worst tilt. I mean, as tilts go, right, Bobby? That's one of the worst when you get off a guy because of weather, and then it's all man.
I like that game for secondaries. I think.
Yeah. Okay. You like anybody besides Higgins? On I guess Hurst might get a few more balls thrown his way as a cheap tight end. We haven't really talked about tight end so much. Who's your favorite cheap tight end?
Hurst is going to be popping for a lot of people. I don't mind Hurst. Getting up, I like Andrews and Kelsey, obviously. Probably my two favorite. Trying to get as much allocation of those guys as possible. Tyler Boyd, I think someone who's going to go overlooked in that game. Everyone's going to go to Higgins. Everyone's going to go to Hurst. And if you're stacking Burrow, just make sure you have some Boyd. But for tight ends, it's just Andrews, Kelsey, Hurst. I think you can make a case for Moreau and Conklin, but that's pretty much where Gerald Everett too at 4-4. If you're Herbert, I think we're all in agreement he's the best play in the slate. I would get to him. Kirky hit on McBride.
How much is McBride on DK?
31.
31, yeah.
Is he going to be popular or not really? People are going to play Moreau over him and stuff like that, or Dolchich.
They're going to play Hayden Hurst.
Yeah, they're going to play Hurst.
Okay, I like McBride as a pivot away from. I think that's pretty good in tournaments. Conklin, same price. He's had his moments, I suppose. Quarterback change there as far as the Jets. What are you doing here? If you're spending up, Kirkwood, I guess it sounds like you're spending down at McBride, but have you considered Kelsey? You have money for it, more so this week than most weeks. Andrews is on the slate as well. Kittle, we saw his upside last time out. We also know his floor because San Fran just has so many weapons offensively. Not everybody can get there every single week. Your general evaluation as far as tight end?
Gerald Everett. It's just too good of a matchup for Everett. And
he's full go. He's coming back from injury, but he's full go.
Yep.
Okay.
So I like him, and I like McBride cheap. If I have to play one expensive guy, and I have Mark Andrews would be that guy. Kelsey, it's just a little bit more expensive, and I get it. There's massive upside. I just worry about this game from a competitive standpoint, and he could still go off and nuke the slate and crush me. But the way I've been building, I just think Mark Andrews for that savings provides pretty much just as much upside in a game that I think is going to be more competitive. And so Andrews would be my pick. And then, there's only three options for me. Maybe I'll come around to Hayden Hurst, but I doubt it. It's Mark Andrews, it's Gerald Everett, or it's Trey McBride for me. Those are my guys.
Your boy in chat, Herbert, he says, come on, Kirky, give me the Kirkwood special. Are you holding out? What is the Kirkwood special?
And you want my lineup? I'll tell you my whole lineup.
I don't want you to give us the whole lineup.
The Kirkwood special is Kendall Hinton.
Yeah. Jared wants
another good thing to do if Herb gives me his plays.
Yeah.
And then I can say fade them, correctly because
is he a mush? Is that what you're saying?
Supposedly he's a bigger mush than you, Dino.
In the mush power rankings.
And I think it's unfair that the people pile on you for being a mush, Dean. It's when you do a show every single day, you're bound to mush people.
You're gonna be wrong a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm not the type of guy that
people forget that it's every day, and we come on for one or two times a week,
Yeah, I thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate that. Yeah. Jared wants about Scary Terry. Yeah, I like Terry. He's got a pretty good price on DK. The weather is not perfect. Last week I had way too much of him, and it wasn't his fault because it was just a blowout and they barely threw the ball in the second half. But where are you at on Terry, Bobby? In the mid tier as far as receivers, on DK especially.
Weather worries me. But I have some McLaurin. I liked secondaries in that game prior to this weather situation. I like London, McLaurin, etc. But Gibson, you could throw in there. I'm worried about the weather.
You got a minute to hit your
McLaurin would easily be my favorite play in that game, though.
Did you want to stress the defensive play? I know we kind of touched on it earlier, but a lot of people expect us to close on defense. Is there a defense you're going to be well over the field on?
You're playing the Chiefs, right, this week? Chiefs, Dolphins, Jets. Yeah.
What about off the board? I'll kind of sort of sum it off the board. I like Washington a little bit versus Atlanta in that weather, and Mariota. I know you want a quarterback that's going to be throwing the ball theoretically, but
what's Washington's price?
I know they're 4-3 on FanDuel, which I think is a pretty good price. Carolina's pretty good at 3-9 on FanDuel as well. I was building FanDuel stuff before the show, and I'm going to build DK after the show. So that's why I know FanDuel more off the top of my head. But let's see. Washington is 3-6 on DK.
It's expensive.
Yeah. Jets are 3-3. People are likely to stop at Kansas City on DraftKings.
I wonder if people will play the Jaguars because you're taking Lamar's left tackle out. This is also the reason that I think Lamar has to scramble more this week. So I think his ceiling is going to be a little bit higher. He's also in a game where the weather isn't as bad as it is everywhere else.
Kirkwood, you got a defensive take?
I'm playing the Chiefs. I don't care. I'll play some Jets too. I'll play some Titans maybe. I forgot to say this from a wide receiver for a cheap play that's going to go like very low owned. Zay Jones.
Why this week?
Because he's got good numbers. He's 21% target share. He's got about almost a 20% air yard share. He's in that range that no one's going to play. He works like a lot of the short intermediate stuff for this offense, and that's usually pretty good against the Ravens. So it's just like it's not one of these feel good plays, but like it's in that same range as Wilson. He's just another guy in that range that he catches a touchdown. It could be a big difference maker.
I like your namesake, a little more expensive. I like Christian Kirk. I just a little bit different as far as the price, but
yeah.
Hey, are you playing? What's your thoughts as far as Yahoo specific? Taysom's $10, the floor at tight end. Is that interesting to you?
I haven't even considered it.
Consider it now. He was on for a career high or season high as far as snaps last week. They're asking about Karen Williams in chat. Yeah, I mean, we don't want it. I guess like theoretically they want that guy to get going for LA, but it's just a dead season, and they want to hit the send button so fast. They defending Super Bowl champs. I don't know if we've ever seen him sputter this much. Obviously injuries. The line is dreadful. They lost Cup. Just an absolute disaster this year from the Rams. Are we considering? I asked the question before. You guys aren't playing any Rams, though, if I was hearing y'all correctly. But all right, give me your favorite stack before you step aside and get out of here. Y'all got Squirrel Patrol and Erik breaking down the slate even further. Do appreciate you guys hanging with us. But Kirkwood, finish strong. Give me your favorite game stack. However you want to answer that. Or just stack du jour. Onslaught. What do you got for me?
Surprise, surprise. It's going to be Justin Herbert of the Chargers, and I'm going to stack him up a couple of different ways. But it's either going to be with Keenan Allen, which is an easy play, 6,100 on DraftKings. But I'm probably going to throw Everett in there with him, and then run it back with DeAndre Hopkins, which is another chalky play. But you got to get different. I think Everett is going to be a difference maker in this, but you got to find like one other play to make it a little bit more unique than all just chalk. But that's pretty chalky. But if not, I can also I don't mind a single stack too either if you like some of the plays around them. But I'm definitely going to have Herbert with one of his pass catchers, maybe two, and definitely DeAndre Hopkins. And I might put McBride coming back too with it.
Yeah. So you're gonna be chilling from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock, hoping for what minutes remaining.
I'm just hoping for a big game from Hinton. Should be in a good mood by 4 when I see like 24 fantasy points from Kendall Hinton.
Oh, you'll be feeling pretty good. Tim asks, is Keenan Allen too risky for cash? No. Keenan Allen's a perfectly fine cash game play today. Bobby, see that stack and raise them. What do you got?
I'll take the other side, take Kyler, and Kirky kind of gave a good breakdown of the run backs. I think that game's going to be super popular.
All righty. Do appreciate y'all hanging with us again. In just a second, you get Squirrel Patrol, you get Erik. That was Kirkwood. On behalf of producer Steve, appreciate y'all watching this first portion. That was Bobby as well. I was Dean. Go win some money here on week 12. Take something down. Hit us up on Twitter if that happens. Let us know. Because, if my lineups are absolutely miserable, it's good to know that somebody out there wants some money that, not that we're taking any credit for it, but we were incrementally a part of. All right, we're stepping aside. We're getting out of here any second now. Erik and Squirrel Patrol knocking in the door. Good luck this week. We're out of here. Holler.
We're here back in the Fantasy Valley with your pints and picks for Week 12, presented by BetMGM. Use promo code GRINDERS over their risk-free bet, up to $1,000. All right, clean sweep for us last week, 2-0 on the video. Let's stay hot. This week, first pick, we're rolling with Cincinnati, -2.5. People questioning, how can Tennessee be an underdog at home? To me, Cincinnati, simply the better team. Cincy's covered 9 of the last 11 on the road, 4 of their last 5 against Tennessee. The public, as expected, all over the Titans at almost 60%, yet the money really drawing this line towards the Bengals at 80%. I'm with the money. I'm with the Bengals. Next pick, we're rolling with a big favorite, Miami Dolphins, -14. 2 words for you here. Kyle Allen starting at quarterback for the Texans. I think Jeff Wilson Jr. has a big day. Miami, top 10 against the run. Going to limit what Dameon Pierce can do in Miami. Been on a roll at home, covering 11 of the last 14 against teams with a losing record. Give me the Dolphins, -14. For BetMGM, I am Beer saying salut. Best of luck with your bets, and we'll see you next week.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition, Week 12 edition. My God, it's Week 12 already. This is crazy. GPP Final Takes here on RotoGrinders.com, brought to you by FanDuel. I am your host, Erik Beimfohr, and I am joined yet again. Apparently, we've been having a rotating guest for a lot of this year, John, on this show, which is a lot of fun because I get to talk to a lot of different people. But apparently, you're bringing the hits too many times that we got to keep bringing you back. And I'm fascinated to hear kind of what your tournament angles are for this slate, because this is kind of one of those slates very much different than, say, particularly last week, right? You got value to play. Anything you want to do. We got a million running backs. We got some fun games. So I'm really interested to hear what you think. But how are you feeling heading into Week 12?
Good. Yeah, it's an interesting week. It's definitely it's our first real backup running back slate of the season. It's the thing that's I was filling out the expert survey on Friday, and it's like every time I put in a backup running back that was going to be seeing full action, it was like another one popped up. And Latavius Murray and Pirine and all of these guys, right? So there's a lot of value out there running back, but trying to keep focused on games we think can kind of go for outlier scores. And shout out to our sponsor FanDuel for appropriately pricing their defenses this week, unlike some other sites that offer a crazy full point per reception and a Chiefs defense that is priced at only 2,800.
They shouldn't be priced at 2,800 against the Chargers, who are a really good at least a decent offense, right? They because the Chiefs do score quite a bit of fantasy points, kind of given the nature of their games and the nature of the way they play. And it's there is never a scenario in which they should be 2,800 period on DraftKings. But you could also see this coming. We've been playing worse defenses against the Rams in tournaments all year long. And now I don't know why they're 2,800. At least with the Jets. I love that we're starting with defense, but I do kind of think the defense thing is fascinating. It's not normally something we get to, maybe outside of what we had the Washington the football team, whatever the hell they're called now. one week that was like 2,400 in a kind of the same Chiefs-esque spot. I think it was against Ellinger and the Colts. But anyway, you have this defense thing where it's like, look, the tournament, the cookie cutter tournament line that like I guess people think I'm supposed to get on here and say, right, is like defense is so volatile. You know, you can't play the super chalky defense. You never know where the touchdowns are going to come from. I'm going to go the other way. I would rather, there are so many good running back plays, wide receiver plays, games I think that I want to target. I'm okay with those chalky defenses, whether it's Jets or I'm talking DraftKings again, Jets or Chiefs, because Justin Fields did just get ruled out like right as we were going live. So, which was expected. But are you doing anything? Let's just knock the defenses out right of the way. Are you doing anything cute at defense, or how are you handling that situation?
I do want to get different at defense. I'm playing mostly like qualifiers and
yeah,
NX boosters and single entry, and I do. I mean, I like the Jets. I mean, I like the Chiefs and I like the Jets. And if I'm gonna swing and miss with a chalky defense, I want to swing and miss with like a cheap chalky defense. But it's so volatile, like you said. It's so volatile, and there's no real reason to think that the Rams are going to throw a bunch of touchdowns to Kansas City. So I think I was looking, the defense with the best touchdown odds is actually Miami. So I'm probably going to go.
I like that.
Dolphins. And that's what I'm looking for out of defense. Like, I'm not looking for a defense who's going to keep the opposing offense to 7 points. That doesn't really do me anything. What does me something is touchdowns and turnovers and sacks. So yeah, I like playing like the Dolphins. I like getting away from the Chiefs. I mean, I like the Jets, but I think the Jets now are probably going to be a little bit chalkier. But that's probably going to take some ownership away from the Chiefs as well. But yeah, I think there's a few different places you can go, and we've got some weather as well. And so I like playing like the Jaguars or like that, some rain. And wind in certain spots. So like playing the Jaguars, Panthers, Broncos. Just getting away from the Chiefs. It's a pretty random scoring position.
Definitely. I will say, I like, maybe I'm wrong, and this is certainly biased. This is an issue I have for sure in the NFL. Well, in all sports, the Jets have been like my pet, almost like team for the whole year. Yeah, shout out Rob. Maybe we will. Let's see. We are 2 minutes in. We are 2 minutes in, and we've been covering defenses. But I mean, when you have a defense that is, I mean, right now we have the Chiefs projected at like 40% ownership on DraftKings. That's not going to be like the highest owned thing on the slate, and it's a freaking defense. Now Siri is telling me about defenses in my ear. But I think if you're going to do it, I love the Dolphins call, and I really like the Jets. The Jets, I just think like the Chiefs don't have an elite defense. They have a fine defense. And the Rams, like you said, I think that they're just going to run Bryce Perkins out there and like not really care to throw. Whereas the Bears, they're not going to throw a ton either, but it's going to be a stationary mobile quarterback that's already a bad offense. Justin Fields has been making that thing work. Now it's just going to be a total train wreck. And I do think the Jets score some points today. So let's talk a little bit about the running back position and kind of piggybacking off of my apparent Jets love, because Richard asked about Michael Carter, and he is one of James Robinson is inactive. That is news. that is news to me. Yes, he is. James Robinson is inactive. So that was a shocker. But so we have these running backs, right? You mentioned it with the backup stuff, and they're all cheap, right? Samaje Perine, Michael Carter now, without Brees and without James Robinson. We'll probably talk about how much Ty Johnson comes in. Rashad White without Leonard Fournette. I'm definitely missing some guys. Latavius Murray without Melvin Gordon and Mike Boone. I guess it's Marlon Mack there. How are you kind of like from top down handling the running back position? Because there are like a lot of these good values, mainly all these backup guys, but even up to the right. Ken Walker looks good. I kind of like James Conner. Austin Eckler looks good. There's just so many good running back plays.
Yeah, that's actually some place where I'm not looking to get that different. Like I think the chalk is really good chalk, and I've kind of always planted my flag there that I don't mind playing chalky running backs when there's like a mispricing, and like when a guy is surprisingly inactive or you've got a running back by committee situation and one of the guys in the committee is gone, like we see in Miami, then yeah, I don't mind. Like that becomes a mispricing at that point. And if Jeff Wilson has like a kind of average game for what the spot that he's in, then he's going to end up on the winning lineup at like 5,900 on DraftKings. I'm actually playing a fair amount of Jeff Wilson on FanDuel, where he's like 7,700. He's like more like I think 600 more than Alvin Kamara on FanDuel. I don't care. Like I'll still play Jeff Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's by far the worst rushing defense in the league. And Jeff Wilson's a guy that he stepped in immediately and started getting a lot of carries, some receptions. So yeah, with Mostert out, I don't mind playing the Jeff Wilson. I don't mind playing Rashad White. White's a guy that's been getting more work as the season goes on. It seems like years we've been waiting for Leonard Fournette to be out for a game and have like Keyshawn Vaughn or LaShawn McCoy or whoever, right, step in and finally get some of that work. But I mean, that's like running back for Tampa Bay has been a point scoring position for years. So yeah, don't mind Rashad White. Like Kenneth Walker, James Conner, if you're spending up a little bit. Samaje Perine as another guy. He is a veteran running back stepping in and he's going to see more work with Joe Mixon. We just saw Joe Mixon score like 25 touchdowns in a game. So I don't mind going with
I think it was 25. It felt like 25 from somebody who didn't play him that week. It really felt like 25.
Just over and over again. I was like, every time you checked your little scoreboard app or whatever, Joe Mixon scored a touchdown. Couldn't
go to the bathroom or get a refill or something without Joe Mixon scoring.
There went Joe Mixon,
So the run. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, just good. There's good. The chalk at the running back position, I think, is good. I think if you're playing a game stack or you've got something that you want to do that's different, I think that's fine. Because obviously, like Austin Eckler is in a high scoring game, and a lot of pieces are coming back for the Chargers, so that takes away from Eckler a little bit. But there's nothing that says like Eckler still can't pile up some receptions and hit the end zone twice. Like that's fine if you want to go there. If you're playing some other pieces from that game, I think that's great. But yeah, I'm not looking to get away from the chalky running backs like I'm looking to get away from the defenses.
Yep, I totally agree. And then we'll definitely get to like the wide receivers in the games and how we stack some things up. And that's where I will definitely be trying to look to get a little bit funky, because exactly like you, I have basically the exact same motto, if we talk about this all the time, like comparing NFL, people try to play NFL like NBA or whatever, but the running back position is the one spot where like that logic, it's not apples to apples, but makes sense, right? Leonard Fournette is out. Rashad White, and I saw some people floating like, oh, they called up Giovanni Bernard. Like teams have to have a requisite number of running backs active on game days. They do need another guy, and they don't want to go sign somebody off the street. Rashad White is going to get as much work as he can handle. Like you said, that Bucs backfield, even this year, when their offense has not been very good, the backfield is still a fantasy goldmine. Rashad White had a 100-yard game. Leonard Fournette has him and Joe Mixon. He's like the Joe Mixon version. He just scores touchdowns every single week. There's just like at 5.1K, and same thing with Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson, it projects raw points, not point per dollar, not ownership, none of that. Raw points projects as the 5th highest scoring running back. And this is on DraftKings. He's not a huge pass catcher. He did catch like 3 or 4 balls last week, but he's not a huge pass catcher. And he still projects as the 5th highest scoring raw points running back. When we get these situations like that, Rashad White is 7th, right? Like all these backups are projected as some of the highest raw points players. It's like the Tony Pollard thing. When Zeke was out, Tony Pollard projects as like a top 3 raw points running back on the slate. Those are such outsized projections for their price that it's kind of like that. Oh crap, so and so's out, and you have a 3K backup, center or whatever that's playing tonight in the NBA. And I kind of just treat it that way. I will say this is probably going to be a very heavy like 3 running back week for me. Using the flex on a running back spot, and I don't mind doing some of the little bit different stuff. It's not, I'm not going crazy off the board with Ty Johnson or something like that, but like Austin Eckler, not going to be super popular because there's all of those 5K-ish running backs, right? Doing that. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, I don't particularly like it, but everybody's written him off. Like, we're done. He scored 40 2 weeks ago or whatever, and like, no, we're done because Eli Mitchell's back. I get it. Derrick Henry, same thing. Nobody's playing that guy. Just finding a spot for one of these other high upside running backs, because even the ones that aren't super popular, like, look extremely good to me. I think Eckler leads that group, but there's a lot of them. I mean, all these running backs look good.
Yeah. So just to point out, like, I pulled the touchdown odds, Vegas touchdown odds about half hour ago. The player with the best odds to land in the end zone this week, according to Vegas, Jeff Wilson at minus 220. So yeah, like, if you play the slate, Vegas is telling us if we play the slate 3 times, at least twice, Jeff Wilson's going to end up in the end zone, right? And that's, at like 5,900 on DraftKings, even at 7,700 on FanDuel. Like, that's, like, I'm happy when my guy hits the end zone. Right behind him at minus 210, Austin Eckler. Then after that, Derrick Henry at minus 195. He's usually the guy that leads this. And then behind that, Travis Kelce, Kenneth Walker, and Christian McCaffrey at minus 165.
Interesting. That's super interesting. Let's talk the running backs. We're going to probably talk about the running backs for a little while, guys. So if you hate running backs like I do, we're just going to have to suck it up for another few minutes, because it's a really pivotal position. And I know you guys have some of these kind of questions, a lot about kind of Michael Carter coming in here. I do want to talk a little bit more about that, and Latavius Murray. These are the two guys we haven't really talked about too much. And I guess P. Ryan, we can probably lump P. Ryan into there, where they are good values. I see the upside, right? Latavius Murray has no Melvin Gordon left, and Mike Boone is not back at it. Like I said, it looks like Marlon Mack is going to back him up. But it's not like the Broncos offense has been a fantasy goldmine all year. He did score like 15 fantasy points last week in a pretty big role. Michael Carter, now without James Robinson, right? We get the narrative street switch to Mike White. Everybody and their mother has referenced remember when Mike White was at quarterback for Michael Carter, like, as if, that's going to, we should extrapolate that. Michael Carter's going to lead the league in targets the rest of the year because Mike White is at quarterback. But how are you treating some of these guys? Because as you see on your screen, Jeff Wilson and Rashad White project like unreal. And these other guys are fine. Like, on a normal week, they would be mega chalk, but this week they're not. How are you handling like Latavius, Carter, P. Ryan, those types?
So yeah, I mean, I like Carter. I like P. Ryan. I don't like Latavius Murray that much, just because, like, that's a really low scoring game. And Marlon Mack is there. And the James Robinson thing doesn't affect Michael Carter as much as we think. But I like Michael Carter as a play, just because, like, we are kind of playing Michael Carter for the receptions. And I wasn't necessarily projecting James Robinson to get that many receptions. But I think Michael Carter is a good play. I think we could see the Jets offense do a little bit better. Obviously with Mike White and then Zach Wilson. There was a little bit of weather in that game though, in the Jets game. I remember seeing that right before we came on. That Kevin Roth's weather report was one of the games that I think was orange. But not like torrential downpour or anything. Like, you gotta get away from that game. But maybe it's a little bit of a hit to Carter and to Garrett Wilson as well. Yeah, so that was the game that was orange. But then again, like, maybe that hits Garrett Wilson a little bit more than Michael Carter, right? Like, and maybe that's some heavy rains forcing a little bit more of rushing and shorter passes, from Mike White to Michael Carter.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Maybe I'm just way off base, but Michael Carter, I don't foresee a scenario, even with James Robinson out, in which they want to make him like a workhorse. We've already seen Rashad White become a workhorse. Jeff Wilson nearly became the workhorse even when Mostert was playing last week. I think that we see that in those backfields. They're just going to ride their main guy. Yes, they're not going to play 100% of snaps, but like, it's basically a workhorse situation. I think Ty Johnson probably and they probably, I don't know who their like fourth running back was. If it's still a LaMichael P. Ryan or something like that, they're gonna use other guys. And look, I know Mike White is in there, and he's probably gonna check it down to him a few more times than Zach Wilson did. But this game, the Bears aren't gonna push them to throw a lot and score a lot, and so you're getting a split backfield guy, maybe a little bit of a nice boost without Brees and James Robinson. But I like Carter. Agree with you more than Latavius. I know Latavius is not going to be like the crazy chalk. I just in 2022, almost 2023, Latavius Murray at any sort of elevated ownership against like a decent defense. Say whatever you want about the Panthers, like They're not the worst. They're not definitely nowhere near the top, but they're not the worst defense. And the Broncos are just horrible. No Jerry Jeudy, no Javonte, no, their offensive line is hurt. That's why when I talked about like kind of that third running back spot, I'm probably just eating Jeff Wilson and Rashad White. Again, mostly talking about DraftKings. I totally agree on the Jeff Wilson FanDuel thing. On DraftKings and FanDuel, I like looking at those other running backs in that third spot. If you want to use it on a wide receiver and like stack a game up, there's a couple really fun games to stack up too. I think it's that that's not like some crazy stand I'm taking, but I think a lot of people are going to be like, okay, I'm playing White and I'm playing Jeff Wilson. Now, is it Latavius? Is it Michael Carter? Right? Is it P. Ryan or whatever? And I'm kind of saying, let's get away from those dudes. It's not crazy leverage on the field, but like, let's get away from those guys and use our salary there or start to correlate there. Any other running backs that we have kind of overlooked? Ken Walker, he talked about, he projects as the top 5 back. Austin Eckler. I kind of like James Conner. I don't know how you feel about James Conner. I'm trying to think of anybody that we might have missed.
Yeah, I think James Conner is the one guy that I wanted to bring up. I think that's the highest point total game of the week. Kyler Murray's back. I think that's probably an assist to Conner. I think you can play. I think Justin Herbert's a good quarterback play, and I think running it back with James Conner is a good option. Just in hope that game hits way above its point total. Not that it even has to go that far above its point total. It's got the highest point total of the week. So yeah, like James Conner, maybe Travis Etienne. I think you mentioned like Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler. It's a little bit interesting. Like, I'm not going to go crazy, but like Dameon Pierce is still there. He's still like pretty well priced. He's a guy we've been talking about getting away from for weeks. You know, like, I got to get away from that Dameon Pierce chalk. Now it seems like nobody's going to play him. And it's not like a great matchup where I need to play him against the Dolphins defense, but if you are maybe playing like a Tua with like Tyreek Hill stack, then maybe you can like play Dameon Pierce and you kind of flip that game on what the perceived build is. Like Dameon Pierce is maybe a guy that for large field tournaments is interesting to me.
I think so too. And just to piggyback on the Conner thing, Conner just is like a victim of circumstance this week in terms of ownership and stuff. And that's really why I like him. Like you said, pick a box he doesn't check other than he doesn't have a lot of juice. Like, don't watch, right? Just wait for the end of the game and wait for the box score and hope for 20 carries for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. But like, he's playing every snap for like, which is again, why are Rashad White and Jeff Wilson and stuff such good plays? Why are we talking about these backup running backs so much? Is because they're going to play so many snaps and get so much of their backfield. Right? Why do we play CMC every week for 2 years? Why do we used to play Le'Veon Bell? It's because they had this role. Why was Najee a first, if you played, season-long fantasy football or best ball or something, why was Najee Harris a first-round pick? Because, yeah, he may not be awesome. The offense may not be awesome, but he's going to play every snap and get all these touches. That's what James Conner is now, right? And they need to win. The Cardinals need to, like, their season is on the brink. So is the Chargers, frankly. But the Cardinals' season is on the brink. And so I think that you're just going to see another, 95% snap share from James Conner at a good price, 6,600. Like, he's less than 1,000 more than Samaje Perine, like, against the Titans, And so I think he is kind of like the bounce back guy of the week that I would say. On most weeks, we'd be really happy to play this dude. Against the Chargers, we play running backs against the Chargers every week, and we're not going to play James Conner just because of the nuance of the week. It doesn't even have anything to do with him. So he's probably kind of my favorite tournament guy. Obviously, I like Ken Walker, but he's not off the board. I think Conner would be my kind of contrarian approach.
Actually, one more guy I want to throw in there is just Isaiah Pacheco for the Chiefs.
Oh yeah,
because like I like the other guys in the price range better, but it is. I mean, the Chiefs are implied to score a bunch of points. That could be a blowout. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire is no longer in the picture, having landed on IR. So yeah, Pacheco's a guy that I think is now being kind of overlooked, and he's totally valid play.
Same thing. It's not not apples to apples. Same idea as Conner though. If a lot of this other stuff hadn't happened, right? Lenny, Mixon gets a concussion. Lenny is whatever old. These random things happen. Mostert's out. If all those didn't happen, 100%. We might have led the show with Pacheco being like, oh God, Pacheco's going to be chalky and it makes sense, but he's not going to catch any passes, blah, blah, blah. We would have done that whole song and dance. But now, I mean, this says 7.9%, 8% on DraftKings and 12% on FanDuel. Maybe I buy it on FanDuel just because of the price tag. But even then, I would say under. I would bet under on these. I don't think anyone's clicking Pacheco over Rashad White or Jeff Wilson or any of these guys. And he was the lead back for the Chiefs. He ran for 100 yards last week. Why can't he attach on some touchdowns? This is the perfect game. They want to get this young kid going, right? Heading into the playoffs or whatever. Why can't he have 100 yards and 2 touchdowns? So yeah, he's a good one too. I like him. Let's see what we got here. Marie wants to know. Bring your questions. I promise. I always have been trying to be better about answering as many questions as we can in the chat. Bring as many questions as you can. Marie asks, who are your favorite 5K or less on DraftKings wide receivers not named Garrett Wilson or Treylon Burks? So yes, those are probably everyone's 2 favorites under 5K wide receivers. Anybody else that tops your list?
Yeah, I like Zay Jones. And then I think also if you want to go all the way down, like I think both Sky Moore and Justin Watson are really interesting at just 3,000 for the Chiefs, and that gives you a lot of money to play with. Marquez Valdez-Scantling actually also less than 5,000. So kind of any of the Chiefs wide receivers, I think make really appealing plays at their price tags. Maybe Drake London. Yeah.
Yep, I like that. Isn't it funny that all the Chiefs wide receivers are free, like completely free, and then they have injuries, right? Hardman's hurt. Like it's kind of an insane situation, and they're playing last year's Super Bowl champions in the afternoon, and not one of those guys is going to get any ownership. And on the Rams side, obviously Cooper Kupp is out. Allen Robinson is not expected to play, and yet no one is playing any wide receiver in that game. Do I want to go like, am I saying, okay, let's go Mahomes to Sky Moore and Juju with a, Van Jefferson bring back? Not necessarily, but like, again, this is on a normal week. We would be having the conversation of, can the Rams score enough to hang in there? Because the best value on the slate is in this game. And no one's playing anyone from this game except the Chiefs defense, and I guess some Travis Kelce. So it's a really fascinating situation with that game where I like that you brought up those Chiefs guys. I'm also going to bring up Donovan Peoples-Jones again for like seemingly the millionth week in a row. I think he's a totally viable play. I'm looking at those Browns wide receivers. I know Amari is not under 5K. I really like Amari Cooper today. And same premise as Donovan Peoples-Jones. They're throwing to Njoku's back now. It's like 3 guys. They're only going to throw to 3 guys. If theoretically Rashad White is going to have a good game, that could be one of 2 ways. The great thing about Rashad White and why he makes for such a tough fade, he's game script proof. His best skill is actually as a pass catcher. So like he's if the Browns happen to get out to a lead, Rashad White's going to play on passing downs and catch a bunch of balls as Tom Brady plays catch up. On the flip side, if Rashad White's really good and the Browns defense keeps stinking and he runs it down their throat, well, now you have opportunity literally like last week with the Browns wide receivers. Look what happened. Amari goes for 102. DPJ goes for almost 101. And, they don't throw it to anybody else and they're super cheap. So I like, again, Amari's not under 5K, but I like DPJ for that reason. Just scrolling really quickly to see if I'm missing anything. Nico Collins, I think, makes sense, similar to your Dameon Pierce thing. We've probably talked about Nico Collins a lot of weeks because the wide receiver value or general value was bad on slates. And today that is not the case, so no one's going to play him. But, I mean, if you're playing Jeff Wilson and you need a punt wide receiver, or if you're playing your Tua Tyreek stacks or something, I like Nico Collins. We also talked about on the Friday show I do with the player profiler guys. This is how gross it gets on that show sometimes. We talked about Chris Moore, who I think is also on the Houston side of things that, if you're absolutely desperate in like a large field tournament lineup on a Dolphin stack or something, I don't think it's totally crazy. Anybody else as a punt wide receiver? Because we're probably not going to talk much about the punt wide receivers given how many cheap running backs we have. We can knock this one out right now.
Yeah, I'll just throw out Demarcus Robinson. He seems to have taken over the wide receiver 1 role in Baltimore, like 9 receptions last game, 128 yards or something like that. Like it's definitely worth considering. Julio Jones, 4,000. I don't know. I think the Bucs passing offense is an interesting pivot, maybe off of some Rashad White chalk, or maybe you take Brady, play him with White, and you can play like a Julio Jones or Chris Godwin or Mike Evans. It makes for a little bit of an interesting situation. There is a little bit of wind in Cleveland, so that might be like a knockdown to the passing games there. But I think it's for a large field tournaments, maybe like a Julio Jones and playing the Bucs passing offense makes some sense.
I like it. So now that we talked about all the crappy wide receivers that no one's playing, and I'm probably not going to play, let's talk about the fun wide receivers and the games we want to target, because we obviously have all these running backs that are these chess pieces that allow us to fit, right? You have a cheap game stack you like. Well, we can, use our value wide receivers, and you can get Eckler, you can get Derrick Henry, you can get whatever, you can get Travis Kelce. But then we also have, the value running backs to get, whoever you want, basically at wide receiver and in a game stack. Where are you starting, like your kind of stacking process? I know obviously there's a few of the higher total games we want to look at, but how, when you start to take ownership into account, where are you kind of starting your game stacking process around those value running backs?
So I think the first game I'm looking at is the highest point total game of the week. It's the Chargers and Cardinals, particularly the Justin Herbert side. Mike Williams is out, so Josh Palmer and Keenan Allen, they're not like spend ups, but they're mid-range wide receivers that I think you can go to. And then in terms of the spend up, like DeAndre Hopkins with Kyler Murray back, he's been great since he returned from his suspension. Like usually double digit targets, usually double digit receptions. And the possibility for a touchdown obviously there. So if I'm playing one game stack, maybe it's a Justin Herbert with DeAndre Hopkins, running it back with a couple of Chargers receivers. Look at the tight ends in that game as well for maybe some savings, along with the running backs. And then Tyreek Hill, I think Jeff Wilson now is obviously going to get a lot of ownership. You can flip that game script a little bit on its head, play Tua and Tyreek Hill, or just play Tyreek Hill as a one-off. And then the guy that we talk about every week, but every week he does well. And every week people are like, can't possibly play him. Devante Adams, another game with over 30 points. I know he's expensive, but you're getting the production for that money. So on a week where you have the money to spend, there's no reason to get away from Devante Adams. Is it last 3 weeks, 13 targets, 14 targets, 17 targets, and a minimum of 126 yards. Ever since we were on this show a few weeks ago, we were talking about him, and everyone's like,
this game,
he had 5 targets because he was playing with the flu or whatever. He's averaged 15 targets per game. So that was Devante Adams.
That's good. That moment is going to live with me probably for the rest of my life. The Devante coming in off of 1 catch for 3 yards, and us talking about him for half the show, kind of like we talked about the defenses for half the show to start this week. That made everybody mad. The Devante thing was so funny, and I think he's my favorite, even more so than Tyreek Hill. My favorite when you factor in ownership and all of that stuff, which of course you have to do. When also take into account I'm playing Rashad. I'm thinking about this through the lens of okay, if I'm eating Rashad White and Jeff Wilson, right? And it's not like I'm going to stack the Bears Jets game or something like that. I'm going to be playing one of these other games that, it's not 0% owned. Devante is probably my favorite, pound for pound spend up wide receiver. Everything that you said, you can't knock anything about the production, the usage. The game is great. Jared's over here saying, what do you think about, maybe we lock in some of those running backs and then we just jam these 2 games in the afternoon are awesome to me. If you have, let's say you have Rashad White and Jeff Wilson and one or both of them maybe don't get there. There's ways to play the Seattle Vegas passing game stack to, swap onto that off of your maybe chalkier Keenan Allen, Wright, Nuke, Palmer team. Or, if you have something maybe a little bit more unique, you played ETN or something like that, and he goes nuts then you can play your Chargers and Cardinals. These 2 games definitely are the focus for me, and Devante is a big reason why. I just know in the Raiders Seahawks game, where the ball's going. And like on a week where there's some, like you said, there's some weather in some of these spots. It's already one of the higher expected scoring games. And I know there's only 2 receivers on one side, and there's almost only 1 receiver on the Vegas side with maybe a couple punt tight ends. This game, and again, of course, the Chargers and Cardinals game, I'm very into. I want to ask you about the Dolphins though, really quickly. When we flip over the cards in an hour or whatever, what do you think is going to be like the Dolphins ownership? Because we have Tyreek catching a bunch of ownership. Obviously, Jeff Wilson is going to be really popular, and then we have Tua catching a lot of ownership. But a lot of the times that's not how it works, right? People don't like to play Jeff Wilson with Tua, with Tyreek or whatever. So do you think it's just, okay, there's going to be lineups with Jeff Wilson and lineups with Tua stacks, and that's why the ownership's going to be there? Do you think people are going to play them together, or how are you at least viewing it?
I think Jeff Wilson's going to be like maybe double the ownership of like Tyreek Hill and like the ownership of Tua. I don't think Tua is going to get played that much. And like even like Friday, when I writing up the expert survey, I think Tua at that time I was looking at as being probably the chalky quarterback. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Smith's going to get higher ownership. I think Justin Herbert's going to get higher ownership, and it does. It then evolves to a point where I do think like we probably will see a little bit less ownership on like Tua and Tyreek Hill. I wouldn't be surprised to see Tyreek Hill under 20%. Probably won't be under 20% by a whole lot, but he might get there like under 20% because I think like Keenan Allen and some other guys are going to see like much higher ownership.
I think people are gonna feel more comfortable playing Jeff Wilson, right? They're gonna have the same thoughts we all do. Like the whole market is smart enough about this now. Like, are the Texans going to keep up enough to with Kyle Allen at quarterback for me to want Tua and Tyreek? They're like, I can just play the running back. I can just play the running back in that scenario. And I agree with that sentiment, but that's where the ownership comes in. All it takes is 2 Texans touchdowns. I'm just throwing something up, right? A long bomb to Nico Collins or Dameon Pierce breaks off a run, or, they just march on. The Dolphins defense is good. It's not earth shattering. Like the Texans can score a couple of times. And so just as the week has gone on, it was like, for me, I'm just going to play Jeff Wilson. I don't care about Tua and Tyreek. And then just as the closer we get to lock, I just keep going like, God, is the Tua Tyreek stack going to be like kind of contrarian? I can't shake that feeling. That's why I asked you about it.
Yeah, actually, we kind of touched on this on my show with JM on Friday. That like I've faded Tyreek Hill before and watched him put up like 200 yards in the first quarter, right?
Yes.
Like I faded him on the thought process that like, this game could get out of hand and they're not going to have to throw the ball deep. Well, if the game gets out of hand, it's got to be somehow, right? And it's not necessarily going to be a bunch of like 6-yard Jeff Wilson rushes. And like it would not shock anybody if Tyreek Hill got like 70 yards and touchdown on the first drive of the game when it's still 0-0, right? So like Tyreek Hill is a guy that can burn you on one play very easily. Like I've watched it like, multiple times throughout the years, even this season. I just watched Tyreek Hill like, wow, that was just 80 yards. So yeah, like I do actually, I think, you've got the wide receiver ownership there hold up. It would not surprise me to see like Tyreek Hill fall far below Keenan Allen and below Garrett Wilson. Not that
I was going to say, I would swap Nuke. I feel like Hopkins is the one getting the steam, particularly, right? Rondale's out. Greg Dortch is out. We'll talk about that game in a second. But there's for good reason. I mean, a lot of the things we talked about with Devante Adams, gets 1 million targets every week, like double-digit catches half the weeks. He just needs to get in the end zone, are true about DeAndre Hopkins for 1,100 less than Tyreek Hill, and I can just play Jeff Wilson, right? Put yourself in the mind of this guy sitting down this morning on the phone making his team. He's like, Texans are going to get killed, but that Chargers game looks really fun, so I'll just play DeAndre Hopkins. Good Lord, can we not with the Ocean? I'm not going to pull up your comment, but it did make me laugh. But let's move on to a new subject with that one. So I kind of think like Hopkins and Tyreek are almost going to switch. And so again, it has me super interested in this, like, what if the Texans hang in there type of situation? And it's like you could just for how many weeks we've been like, you could play Tua, Tyreek, Waddle with, a bring back or something on the other side. I think it's viable today. And I think 4 days ago, people were like, no, too chalky, can't play that. I kind of think it's going to be like unique today. Maybe I'll be wrong. We'll flip over the cards and Tyreek will be 25% or something, and I'll be wrong. But that's kind of where I'm standing right now. Let's talk about that Chargers-Cardinals game, though, because I think it's probably the most appealing game from a game environment perspective. We have guys missing on both sides. I know Keenan is back, but still, we lost Mike Williams. We brought Keenan Allen back. Like, there's still tons of value on the Chargers side. And on the Cardinals side, you have Hopkins, who we just talked about. Hollywood Brown is back, but maybe on a pitch count. Rondale Moore is out. It looks like Greg Dortch is unlikely to play. Zach Ertz is out. There's a lot of theoretical value in this game, but also forgive me if I can't shake this. This is the Cardinals and the Chargers, two of the teams that like absolutely love to disappoint us in fantasy and in real life all year long. And so there's a very, very few ways to get different in this game. That's why we brought up Connor earlier. How are you approaching this game in tournaments? Because it's like, I mean, clearly I like it, but like, how do I stack it in a smart way?
Yeah, well, actually, I think you kind of said there that, yeah, it's tough to get different, but there's a reason it's tough to get different. It's because it's concentrated offenses and we know where the ball's going to go. Yeah, yep. That's great, actually. Yeah, so I think you can get different. Like, it's a good game to stack with like a bunch of wide receivers, right? It's like there's a bunch of different options, like Hopkins, Keenan Allen, Josh Palmer, and I like adding the tight ends as well. Like if you want to get different, and it's probably not going to take that much to get different if we have a defense that's 40% owned.
You're right.
Like if you just don't play the Chiefs defense, like then you're taking away a bunch of ownership. Like just pick any other defense, and you're suddenly different than like 40-something percent of the field. But I do think they'll probably end up like 30-something% owned, maybe a little bit less with the Jets probably getting a little bit more popular now.
Like 25 Jets, 40 Chiefs, or some. I'm just throwing out numbers. 35 Chiefs, 25 Jets, or something like that.
Yeah, it'll be something like that. Maybe like 30 and 20 or but yeah, pick any other defense. Now you're different than about 50% of the field or Jets on DraftKings. I love adding the tight ends that like play a couple of wide receivers from the game with either Kyler Murray or Justin Herbert. Add a tight end. Like Trey McBride. Or Gerald Everett, even. I think Everett has some injury questions over the past couple of weeks. So, but now it looks like he's healthy. So, add the tight ends. Don't play the Chiefs or the Jets defense, and you can stack things. It doesn't matter the fact that it's going to be highly owned.
100%. Trey McBride got to 2 weeks ago. He played 91% of the snaps, and last week he played 76% of the snaps. I know the production has not been there. But those are the guys I think you still want to continue to bet on. I'm not saying jam Trey McBride into every single one of your lineups, but in an Arizona passing offense that now doesn't have Rondale and probably doesn't have Greg Dortch, and maybe Hollywood is on a pitch count. I shouldn't do these. I shouldn't say these things this way, but I always like to say, like, I hate to tell you, AJ Green's not going to get 12 targets, and we're going to fast forward to 6 p.m. and AJ Green's going to have 12 targets. But like, there's just, they can only throw the ball to Hopkins so many times. Like the defense is also trying to win. It's like you can't just throw the ball to Hopkins 25 times. If Hollywood is on some sort of a pitch count, Robbie Anderson is clearly just, I don't know what the hell happened to that dude. He's useless. And AJ Green's not going to earn that many targets. They have some backup wide receivers. I don't know if it's going to be Pharaoh Brown or what they're going to do at wide receiver. It's really bad. But what does that mean? Well, that means they're probably going to play more tight end personnel because they don't have the wide receivers to take it right. When they had Dortch and Rondale and all Hollywood, all these guys, sometimes you might just take the tight end off the field, play 4 wide receivers. But like today, there's no reason. Like, why would you take Trey McBride off the field to put Pharaoh Brown on the field? Like that doesn't help you. So he's just going to be out there the whole time. And dude, at tight end, sometimes that's absolutely all it takes is just being out there, in a shootout game.
Yeah, and that price, like 3,100 on DraftKings, playing that at tight end, like that affords you a lot of salary to do kind of whatever you want and add the higher priced pieces from the highest point total game of the week, which also happens to be that same game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't necessarily always like on FanDuel. I don't love, even though he's only 4,800. The price difference like between the top and the bottom tight ends it just isn't as great as it is on DraftKings. So not as great of a play on FanDuel, but I'm still like if you like he's my favorite of the cheap tight ends on both sides.
Definitely. I totally agree. Another guy, just while I'm thinking about it, that's kind of a cheap tight end, particularly on DraftKings, he's much more popular. You see him, he slots in 4th for us in ownership here, is Foster Moreau. But he is like the veteran version of Trey McBride in that hasn't had the big production, but without Darren Waller and especially without Hunter Renfrow also, he's just out there, dude. He's out there. He's running routes. The matchup is good against Seattle. We've played him how many times? Foster Moreau is the tight end version of what the some of the guys we talked, the Devante Adams thing. It's like, look, we played him how many times, and we know he's good. Like, we know Foster Moreau is like a pretty good athlete. We know he's put up numbers in the past without Darren Waller. Just hasn't happened. And there's like, it happens in DFS. There's fatigue around guys that you're like, oh, Waller's out, I got to play Moreau. Didn't do it. And you're like, all right, that's it. I'm done. I'm not playing him, but he's still out there for every single snap and running, almost every single route. So Moreau and McBride are probably, Moreau is definitely not some super contrarian option, but Moreau and McBride I really like as punt tight ends. Again, more so on DraftKings. Let's talk about tight end FanDuel though, really quickly. How are you handling? I'll switch over to FanDuel as you start to talk about it. How are you handling the superstar tight ends versus kind of some of these other guys, like you mentioned with McBride, Everett, etc., versus Andrews, Kelsey?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously like Mark Andrews and Travis Kelsey. I think they're, especially on FanDuel, going to be my 2 highest owned tight ends. I think spending way down at tight end on FanDuel gets you less than it does on DraftKings. Like, the salary difference just isn't as great. And then also like Gerald Everett. He's like 5,200 on FanDuel. He's in that high point total game. He's done well when Mike Williams has been out. Like, his last game wasn't so good. I guess 2 targets.
Yeah, but look at these.
That 8 targets, 9 targets, 7 targets. Had a 10 target game earlier in the year. So it's been a little bit since he scored a touchdown, but we know we can find the end zone. So probably my 3rd highest owned tight end on FanDuel.
I think tight end feels like on FanDuel is probably, you don't got to get super fancy. On DraftKings, it feels like you might be able to get a little bit cuter, whether it's including guys in your stacks, right? I have a buddy that I was talking to this morning who was showing me like Joe Burrow stacks. He's like, has like Austin Hooper as like the bring back, and it's like, no one wants to get on a show and talk about Austin Hooper, but I'm like, in that team that you shared, he makes sense, right? He's kind of like a veteran, crappy version of the Trey McBrides and Foster Moreau's. Like, he's going to be out there. Somebody's got to catch a few passes for Tennessee. He showed us a little bit of a ceiling recently. I think on DraftKings, like you said, those have so much more impact on DraftKings when you get 12 points from your 3K tight end in PPR. That works on DraftKings. Like the things that Kelsey has to do to beat a 15.3K tight end is like, you need a big game from Travis Kelsey to do that. On FanDuel, it's just not that way. Kelsey or Andrews just go 6 for 60 and a touchdown. That might be enough on FanDuel because, like you said, the salary is not that different. Sometimes the pricing is easier to fit those guys. Whatever. Touchdowns are just so important. My Lord, everybody is loving Michael Carter today. You're fine, Brian. We did talk about Michael Carter. I would classify as John as like so on Michael Carter, like kind of in the middle. Definitely don't dislike him. Not writing him off, but I think maybe the market sentiment is a smidge high. How would you classify it?
Yeah, I mean, because the news broke that James Robinson was out right before we came on the air, so I haven't looked at updated projections. He's a notch for me. He's still a notch below Jeff Wilson. Still not below Rashad White, but he's in there. Then with the conversation, would I rather play Latavius Murray or Michael Carter? Probably Michael Carter.
Same.
Yeah. So I like him. I don't love him. A little bit of wind in that game should maybe help him. So yeah, I like Michael Carter not as much as I like Jeff Wilson.
Same. It's like if you're having to draw a line, right? You're making a team. Maybe you're making one team for today or whatever. You're putting it in the SPY. You're like, which running back am I cutting? I'm definitely cutting Michael Carter before I cut Jeff Wilson and Rashad White for me. personally. I know that that's a very chalky mentality. I do think I'm totally going to get off base here, but I did want to kind of go back to the Bucks really, really quickly because you mentioned it, and I was looking at it this morning. That's actually a pretty interesting game to fade Rashad White with like a Brady stack. We talked about like DPJ and Amari. I like David Njoku at tight end, another kind of low owned tight end that has flashed big time upside. And we know he's a good, exciting young football player. There's ways to like stack up that game. Again, I know the weather isn't great. I think that's a pretty big concern for me actually. But, if you're going to ignore that weather, Brady to like Godwin and Evans, or like you mentioned Julio with DPJ or Amari or Njoku or something as a bring back, and then you can use these other running backs, right? It's not like fading Rashad White when we had like Tony Pollard week where it was like, okay, I faded Tony Pollard and I had to play, so some crappy 6K running back. It's like you have Michael Carter, you have Latavius Murray, you have Samaje P. Ryan, you have Isaiah Pacheco, you have all these guys that you can play. So I do think that's at least like a reason to want to play Michael Carter is like maybe playing a Tua stack and fading Jeff Wilson, or playing a Brady stack and fading Rashad White is kind of how I'm thinking about it right now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
This is a mess. Apparently Trevor Siemian Jason is telling us Trevor Siemian got hurt in warmups. So they called up Nathan Peterman from the practice squad, or I don't know if he's on the practice squad or what, but he's now starting for the Chicago Bears against a really good Jets defense. And what do you think?
Trevor Siemian teams.
Yeah. R.I.P. to my Siemian Darnell Mooney stacks. Yeah. What do you think happens to the goddamn? This is too much defense talk. What do you think happens to defense ownership with all this chaos of the Bears this morning? Chiefs versus Jets.
Yeah, I don't know. Does this change anything really? Like, what's the difference between Trevor Siemian and
No. I mean, Peterman is technically worse, but like we're talking about tiny differences.
Yeah, maybe the perception of like a quarterback getting hurt in the hour before we lead up to the game does steam the Jets defense a little bit at the expense of the Chiefs, but they were going to be highly owned regardless. I don't know, man. Like, would I have thought about this game any differently if you had told me Nathan Peterman is starting? No. He got hurt. Now it's Trevor Siemian. I wouldn't have thought any differently about this game. So it seems like big news, like in a quarterback getting hurt in the hour before the game, like should be big news, but I don't know. What does this change?
It doesn't change anything, but this is true. Matt says Peterman did throw five interceptions in one half. Never forget. I did watch that game, and that was like a week 16 or 17 back in the day, DFS slate or something. He was starting. I can't remember exactly, but yes, that was the people actually, are.
If this changes anything for me, it might make me like Michael Carter a little bit more, because there is a possibility that the Bears, with two quarterbacks hurt, one with the hour leading up to the game, like they're not going to let Nathan Peterman throw 5 interceptions in one half. They're gonna run the ball a little bit, and maybe the Jets are then gonna take a lead and run the ball a little bit. And so maybe this maybe the Jets look at this and say, yeah, like the Bears really can't come back if we get a lead, and we're just gonna run Michael Carter a little bit more.
Yeah, that's really interesting actually. I hadn't thought about it that way. And like if they just it's gonna hurt the Jets defense. I'm coming up with a ridiculous scenario, but if they just don't throw, right? If the Bears are like, let's just get the hell out of here, right? I honestly, if I was a Bears coach right now, that's probably what I would be thinking. Like, look, come on, we're bad as it is. We're not going to win this game. Let's just get the hell out of Dodge. Let's hand it to David Montgomery 30 times. He's going to get 45 yards, and we're going to lose, and that's fine. But what does that mean? That means that like, without James Robinson, again, if James Robinson were playing, maybe we'd be having a different discussion about like, okay, what happens in the second half if the Jets are up by 20? Now it's just Carter and Ty Johnson, I guess. Like, I don't know. It definitely is a boost, I think, to Michael Carter. How much? Half point or something projection, right? But like, I do think it puts the ceiling. I think it makes the ceiling a little bit bigger, because I already was concerned about the like passing work. Not like, is he going to play on passing downs? But like, are they ever going to throw? Right? Like, there was no need for them to throw if they're going to throttle the Bears. So he needs the rushing. Maybe this helps that. I'm definitely gal braining this, but I think it's at least interesting to consider, because running back is is wild. It's absolutely wild this week. All right, we got just a few minutes left. Game stacks we didn't talk about. We talked very briefly about Bucks, Cleveland. We talked Chargers, Cardinals. We talked a little bit about the Devante, with mostly Devante and Foster Moreau. But I like the Seahawks stack as well. I think DK Metcalf is my preference in the passing game there. Feel free to correct me if you have a difference. But is there any other game that you're interested in stacking? Yeah, Baltimore and Jacksonville, I think, will be the other one. What about that one?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Had this long lead up. I'm like, I can't wait to say like Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews. And
I'll just shut up next time.
Right away from me. Yeah. So I think one game stack that we just didn't talk about. I think it's going to be under our own. Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Zay Jones, really well priced from that game. Like that game doesn't have to do as much to really hit a really good score. And that I've said it before, it scores well for DFS, right? So Lamar Jackson can throw 2 touchdowns to Mark Andrews, and that's more of a slate breaker than some other spots we've looked at that are higher priced, and where you're talking about like the wide receivers and the running backs. So I'd go with Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, running back with Zay Jones as the stack that we didn't talk about that I would want to point out.
It's pretty interesting. Again, I have FanDuel pulled up here. DraftKings is a smidge different, where Lamar is a good clip more expensive than the Kylers and Herberts and Tuas and Burrows and all that. 1,000 or a little more than 1,000. He's legit cheaper than Tua on FanDuel. He's basically the same price as Geno Smith on FanDuel, and his game plays so well to FanDuel too. Like you said, not only does this game score well for DFS, and do Ravens games typically score well for DFS, like Lamar's game for FanDuel specifically, because he does, let's just be honest, he doesn't get the 300 yard. He's not Mahomes, who like you just like lock in the 300. Your projection is like, okay, 75% of the time he's getting the 300 yard bonus. Lamar's not doing that, but the rushing is insane. He could run for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. I know that sounds absurd, but like that's in his range of outcomes. That does not exist for any other football player on this slate. And the Jaguars are a great matchup for it to happen. Maybe there's some weather concerns, but he also has the clearest. Is there a clearer stacking partner than him and Mark Andrews on the whole slate? I don't know if there is.
Yeah, I should just point out, actually, you brought up the pricing, and I think that's a key point. Lamar Jackson is much better priced on FanDuel than DraftKings, and the flip side is Joe Burrow is much better priced on DraftKings than on FanDuel. So if you're looking for a sneaky stack on your site, like that's. Are you
stacking? Yeah, are you stacking some Burrow? How do you feel about that game? A little Burrow T, like with a Burks bring back, or how are you looking at that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do the show on Friday with Jam to Win, and he was pointing out that the Tennessee defense just screams for passing. So everyone's going to be playing Samaje Perine because that's the injury news. But if you're the Bengals coaches, you're probably going in with a game plan if we're going to pass the ball way more than you're going to rush the ball. So Joe Burrow, particularly on DraftKings, where he's much better priced. And then you've got Jamar Chase out, so then that brings up the clear stacking partners. Like you can do Joe Burrow and T. Higgins. You can throw in some Tyler Boyd and also Hayden Hurst at tight end. And then love running it back with Treylon Burks.
And Matt wants to bring up Austin Hooper one more time, just for the people. If Austin Hooper catches a touchdown, I'll never hear the end of it from Matt. This is also very funny from Matthew. Which position player on the Bears is going to, when Peterman gets hurt, who's going to play? They should let a defensive lineman play quarterback or something like that. This game's a shit show anyway. We might as well just have some fun with it. All right, we got to get
Claypool just in case.
Look at this. True North was on the Claypool's going to have more passing yards than Peterman. I like it. We're really gal-braining here. Up your Claypool exposure is what you just heard here, because he's going to be a quarterback slash wide receiver. We got it. God, people are actually researching this. Montgomery is the emergency quarterback. If you're curious, boost your David Montgomery projection, because if Peterman gets hurt, he's going to play quarterback. All right, we got to get out of here. For the Crunch Time crew, they will handle, of course, all of your questions that we did not get to. My God, there's a lot to cover on this slate. I do not envy them for a half hour leading up to this, because we got hit with some news that we didn't expect. But what is somebody even asked basically the question, but what is kind of your conviction now We got some news maybe we didn't expect. We got some chaos. But what is the conviction about this slate that you need to have in your tournament lineups to take down GPPs in week 12?
I guess like if there's one thing I want to say, I think it's be okay playing the chalky running backs and be okay fading the chalky defenses.
I like that. I like that a lot. This week is tougher for me on this one because normally, even when there's a lot of plays, I have pretty strong conviction about, this guy's a bad play, not a bad play, but, I really, really like this guy. Our Devante Adams conversation type of thing was like, I just felt really strongly about that one. I think I'm actually going to go back to Devante Adams. We're going to have a two-parter. Devante Adams is the wide receiver that you need on this slate. You have infinite money to go get him, but yet his ownership is not really coming through that way. And his target share is just as good and his upside is just as good. It kind of floors me that we're going to go to all these other wide receivers other than Devante Adams. So it's Devante for me, and then a little bonus, a 1B. The running back you want to get cuckoo with, you want to get crazy with, is James Conner. James Conner finally has that week. People were really into James Conner coming into the season. He hasn't done it yet. This is the spot. I think this is the spot. You can still play your other running backs, but James Conner as maybe your third running back. With Keenan, with Palmer, whatever, however you want to play it. I really like James Conner. Anything else, John, before we get out of here?
No, yeah. Enjoy the week. Have some Thanksgiving leftovers.
Yeah.
Probably still good. But
exactly. Probably.
Enjoy the Sunday.
For myself and for John and for Sosa on the ones and twos, we will see you guys in week 13. Thanks for hanging out.
What is up, everyone? Turf Ferguson, aka Genie for 07 over on Twitter, bringing you another edition of Going Long, where I'm giving my favorite NFL bets each and every Monday, Thursday, Friday. Got 3 of you this weekend. Let's get right into it. Starting off with Christian McCaffrey under 58.5 rushing yards. You can get this minus 115 over at Win. It's really simple. He's just not being used as much in the rushing game for the last few weeks. Mitchell's come in, and he's really the second back, and they want to rush him more. Seems he's used a ton in the passing game, but this number is too high with the decrease in rushing workload in each of the last 3 weeks. It's an easy under. Next up, Cordero Patterson under 48.5 rushing yards, minus 115 over at Bet Rivers. This number is too high here. He's really not getting a ton of work over the last couple of weeks since coming back from injury. There's multiple guys that can run the ball in this offense. They just don't want to give him a huge workload. Easy under. Last up, Dotson under 28.5 receiving yards, minus 110 over at DK. This guy's been an afterthought since coming back from injury. Heineke doesn't like passing the ball to him. Just 3 targets and 2 receptions for 27 yards in the last 2 weeks since coming back from injury. This is an easy under. Good luck to that, guys. I'm out of here. Later, guys.
Chaos. What's up, RotoGrinders? We got another edition of NFL Crunch Time here with my Chicago crew. First off, 2 of the best minds in the biz. But first off, I got Kristi Metzger. Krayton, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm always looking forward to do a show with you guys. So I saw you guys on the slate. It's going to be a great one. I mean, lots of news already kind of coming at us here in the last half hour. So it'll be great to break this down and win a lot of money for us all today.
Worst possible day for me to be hosting Crunch Time, aside from being thrilled to be with the 2 of you, because this would be such a fun day to run 150. I got the tightest pool I have ever had for an NFL slate. And so really looking forward to this one, but afraid with my minimal teams, I'm not going to have my right combos. But a guy who's always great at picking the lesser owned plays for tournaments, getting those right combos in, Drizzy26. Dre, how you doing?
I am doing pretty good over here. I'm actually running a lot of lineups for one of the few times this year in football. I feel really good about this slate. So I think I got some plays that we can hone in on and make some people some money, and hopefully see them in second place behind me in tournaments that I'm in, at least.
So how we're going to rip things through today, because we had so much news and a lot of QQs coming in already. I'm going to get through these ad reads quick. Then we're going to handle FanDuel cash, FanDuel tournaments, DraftKings cash, DraftKings tournaments. I'll go to Kristi for cash, and then Dre for tournaments. But as always, if you guys have strong takes in the opposite field there, by all means, help get them in. And we got you covered today at scoresandodds.com. It's not just about DFS today. It's about betting too. And Scores and Odds is your number one place for all things sports betting. Check it out for everything you need to make you a better sports bettor, including our new Parlay IQ tool, now with FanDuel Sportsbook integration. Build your optimized same-game parlay based on thousands of simulated games. With a click of the button, you can bring that bet slip directly into the FanDuel Sportsbook. We also got the FanDuel single entry series going on for NFL. Don't forget to reserve your entry in the $5, $33, and $100 tiers. Get on the action for weekly and seasonal prizes. In first place right now, we got Ledetsfo. Second place, we got Tef3TC. And in third place, we got Puckrat. You can also sign up for the FanDuel Sportsbook if you're in a legal sports betting state and take advantage of their awesome Thanksgiving offer. Bet $5 and get $125. Terms and conditions apply. And in case you haven't heard of Stat Hero, it's a unique fantasy sports platform that allows users to compete only against the house and not against the other players in a contest. You can participate in H2H style contests, head-to-head style contests, where Stat Hero provides a lineup that you have to beat with your own, as well as pick'em style contests. You should also check out the Big Dime League, a season-long NFL leaderboard with up to $50K in prizes. You can enter all season long, use promo code GRINDERS, and get a 50% deposit bonus up to $250. Jump in on the action today. Let's hop into today's slate. Starting on FanDuel, we got weird breaking news just before we popped on here. We have Justin Fields already out for Chicago. Everybody's darling from the last few weeks in fantasy football, just been crushing it. And not only is he out, but Trevor Siemian, his backup, just got hurt in warmups as well. And we're going to see the interception king, Nathan Peterman, coming in as the starting QB for the Chicago Bears today. That switches things up. But we also got James Robinson inactive for the Jets, making somebody like a Michael Carter going to the top of people's lists at the running back position as well. There are so many great running backs today because of the amount of injuries we have. We're looking at Rashad White, Jeff Wilson Jr., Samaje Perine, and now add Michael Carter to the list. How are you prioritizing these guys in cash games, Kristi?
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. For me, it's really kind of a pay down too when looking at some of those running backs. I mean, like you said, I think Wilson, Rashad White, Samaje Perine, James Conner, Michael Carter are all in the mix. And to me, I'm paying down and keeping a really tight pool for running backs. And I think getting, for me too, I'm going 3 running back at flex as well this week. So to me, I'm looking at those guys for cash game plays and making sure I have 3 in my lineups.
Yeah, I think that makes sense as well. For me personally, I think I'm kind of prioritizing it on FanDuel. This differentiates on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, I think I'm kind of going White and Carter is my 2 favorites, and then I'm mixing and matching the Perines, the Wilsons, and other players in there as well. Dre, when we got this chalk here, who do you like in tournaments at the running back position?
I like a lot of it, honestly. It's just kind of difficult to decide what I want to go with, but I think I am. Sorry, I just have to get this in real quick. But I think I'm using FanDuel talking specifically right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, because I have both of them. FanDuel, Jeff Wilson's hard to avoid, so I got to go with him. I do like Rashad White a lot. I'm getting a lot more Michael Carter because I think the Jets will be able to run the ball a lot in the second half. So he's becoming in my top 5 highest running back today. I like Kenneth Walker a lot. Isaiah Pacheco I'm really, really, really high on him today. And I do like Derrick Henry as a spend up option a lot. So I think that's someone that we could look at today. I don't even mind David Montgomery because, like they said on the last show, they might just want to run the ball the whole time, just to get the game over and done with, milk the clock as much as possible. So we can see Derrick Henry get a lot of touches here. So I like him a lot. I am actually not as high on Samaje Perine today as I thought I would be, but that's for reasons because I'm gonna go with my guy Joe Shiesty. But we'll get to that with when we do. But I even do like Dameon Pierce a little bit at low ownership in a spot where he could possibly have a bounce back spot.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I like all of those calls. Joe Burrow, I think, is more of a DraftKings specific play for me. But that's like we mentioned, we're going to talk about that when we talk about it. We started in reverse with the running back position just because it's such an important spot today. But let's take it back to the QB in cash today, Kristi. Who is your optimal person on FanDuel? Are you looking at Mahomes, Tua, or Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, I like all those guys. I think Geno Smith is in the conversation too for cash games. I just think he has a great matchup, really good price. So to me, I'm kind of looking at Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Geno Smith, Tua maybe more so for tournaments. I thought he was going to be a little bit more popular. I think his ownership might not be quite as high as we think, just because of some of the other quarterbacks that have emerged. But yeah, for me, I would like all of those guys. I'd also throw in there, I do like Justin Herbert quite a bit too. I think that game with Kyler Murray, one of the highest totals on the slate. I think that's a great play too. Joe Burrow, you mentioned him. I don't think he's a cash game play, but someone I certainly want exposure to. Jamar Chase is out, of course, so I think getting some exposure to him is a great play. But for cash, kind of looking at Lamar Jackson, Geno Smith, and Patrick Mahomes for me on FanDuel. I would say, as looking over at DraftKings a little bit, I think you can kind of throw Tua, Justin Herbert into the mix just because their prices are really, really good for cash.
Yeah, I like it. I agree. Their prices are very good there for cash games. On FanDuel, I think that Lamar Jackson price tag for your optimals, for your big cash lineup, that's just too good to pass up, I think. We need the salary this week, the passing and rushing upside. I think Lamar Jackson is the guy I want to go with there. And so before we switch over to the receiver conversation, because this just goes so firmly with Lamar Jackson today, Kristi, in an optimal lineup for cash, who are you prioritizing at tight end? Is it something where you're just mixing and matching it with the quarterback you have in that lineup? Yes. Or are you looking at the savings of a guy like Gerald Everett, who's just super tempting as well?
See, Gerald Everett, I think, is one of the best plays at tight end on FanDuel. You just look at his price, even compared to DraftKings. He has the best matchup, if there ever is one, for a tight end. So I love Gerald Everett. I also like Hayden Hurst quite a bit. He's in a good matchup too. No Jamar Chase. Those are two guys that I want to get exposure to on the cheap end. Obviously, if you can get Kelsey and Mark Andrews in there, especially with your Lamar Jackson lineups, I like those two if you're spending up. But I'm finding myself spending down quite a bit, and those are two of my favorites for cash.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like Mark Andrews, Gerald Everett, and Travis Kelsey are basically taking all of my exposure. Dre, who do you like at tight end? Who are you prioritizing for tournaments? And then take us over to the receiver position after that.
I like all of those. Well, I'll touch on quarterback briefly real quick in FanDuel. I like Joe Burrow a lot. I think he's a good play. Geno Smith is also a great play. I'm getting a good amount of Mike White too as well. I think that he can be a viable guy to get because allows you to fit a lot of other people in your lineup, and he's going to be low owned. And he did have a 400-yard game last year. And I was actually at that game against a team against the Cincinnati Bengals last year who did have a pretty good defense. I also like Tua Tagovailoa as well. Tight end wise, I'm pretty much on the same guys. I love Gerald Everett a lot. He's my top tight end on that I'm getting to, followed by Hayden Hurst. These guys are just going to be using mostly in stacks. Tyler Conklin will be next for me, just because I think that they'll be able to check down a lot, and he has a chance to get open a lot. I think 2 touchdowns is in the realm of possibilities for him today. Foster Moreau, also someone else I'm getting to. I know he's been disappointing a lot, but he has a good matchup here where he can definitely pay off and getting the end zone here this week. I also do like Mark Andrews, obviously, and Travis Kelce, but I'm not getting to him as much just from a salary perspective point and me spending up in different spots. And I have a little bit of Greg Dortch. And then that would lead me into, I guess, the wide receiver. You said
Greg Dulcich?
Dulcich, sorry.
Yeah, just because Dortch is out, Fred, so I want to confirm.
I thought about wide receiver when I was talking about it.
Yeah.
So, but wide receiver wise, I love Keenan Allen today and DK Metcalf. Those are guys I'm getting to a lot of. Like, I'm being double, triple the field on them for sure. I like Mac Hollins a lot as well. I like the Raiders offense from a standpoint because I can run it, because those are pieces I can use in a run back with Geno Smith, my Geno Smith lineup. So Mac Hollins, I think, is a great underrated play, as well as Devante Adams, who's not getting as much ownership as he should be. And Keenan Allen is one top guy. T. Higgins, obviously, as well. Terry McLaurin, as long as Tyler Henneke is starting, you have to play Terry McLaurin, especially in the lineup in this game where the team that they're facing plays a lot of man defense. He can take advantage of that and have a big day. So Terry, you should be double, triple the field on him. I like Brandon Ayuk because of the Saints, the way the secondary situation is. It's horrible when our secondary is right now. So Brandon Ayuk is another priority for me on both sides. And I'm trying to get as much Tyreek as I can, but it's kind of hard. And Mike, I think Mike Evans is also someone we should mention too as well. I think he's a fantastic tournament play that will go well overlooked.
So, Kristi, who are you prioritizing in cash games? Because for me personally, it's very similar to Dre. It's Metcalf and Keenan Allen as my two top guys. And maybe you can answer the question for me in my main lineup as a last piece. Dre brought up liking Mac Hollins. I need a cheap receiver here. Would you go with Mac Hollins, Zay Jones, or Sky Moore?
Oh, it's funny because we're probably landed on some of the similar builds. I find myself in that same spot. I think I'm going to go with Zay Jones, but I love Zay Jones and Hollins. I'm reserving Sky Moore for tournaments, and I do have some exposure to TJ because I think he is a really sneaky play. Some of those wide receivers are. But for like main lineups and stuff, I kind of find myself at Zay or Mac Hollins.
And then outside of that, who are your priorities today at receiver?
So for me, Keenan Allen, absolutely. Like, he is just absolutely way too cheap. I mean, especially on DK at just 6.1K. So to me, he's such a core play today. I like the DK Metcalf as well. Think he's a really good cash game play. If you need to save money, Garrett Wilson has certainly hit some of the optimals in there too. If you need to save a few bucks, I'm fine with that. We talked a little bit last week about Terry McLaurin. I still really like him, cheap 5.8K on DK. So I think he's a phenomenal play. So for cash, those are some guys I like. I don't mind Godwin too. You could throw him in the conversation as well. But at the top, it's really hard not to like, getting either Devante Adams or Tyreek or DeAndre Hopkins. They're all fantastic plays this week. I think Devante Adams coming in at low ownership than the rest. I think he's just a really awesome tournament play. Someone I have a lot of ownership on. And then I throw Jalen Waddle in there too. He might go a little bit overlooked. And how many times has he been in the optimal tournament lineups, with Tua and Tyreek? So I really like that Miami game, especially with Wilson carrying a lot of ownership. So I like all of those guys a ton. Joshua Palmer, I really like him too. I mean, no Mike Williams. He's just been getting a ton of targets. He has to be one of the best tournament plays on the slate too. Priced very reasonably, really, on both sites, 5.4K, 6.8K over on FanDuel. So he's someone I think you want to get exposure to as well. And then we talked a little bit about the Kansas City receivers. I think there's a ton of them that are super interesting, but I really like Juju as, a tournament option this week. I mean, he's seeming to get overlooked. We have him at 7% ownership, and he could easily get a couple of touchdowns. And then the guy that always gets overlooked, he's had a couple of slate-breaking performances, is Amari Cooper. He just never seems to get the ownership, and he can certainly put up a ton of points. So those are a few of the guys that I'm looking at wide receiver.
Very similar pool to me today. Josh Palmer is another guy I love in tournaments. If I'm going Keenan Allen on my main lineup, I want to go Josh Palmer and Gerald Everett in my external lineups where I'm kind of hoping to get a little bit different. DraftKings specifically, is there anything that is a big difference for the two of you for optimals as well as for tournaments? So guy like Lamar Jackson, nowhere near as enticing when we have the likes of Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, Tua Tagovailoa, and Justin Herbert all in the 6 to 7K range. And then Geno Smith at a flat 6K, Mike White at 4.9, Bryce Perkins at 5, Kyle Allen even at 4.8K. Like, there's so many different guys different ways that you can go with the quarterback position on DraftKings. Whereas for me, I'm playing 5-6 QBs on FanDuel, but if I were running 150 on DraftKings, I'd be spreading it out a lot more. The other biggest difference is you have a guy like Kenneth Walker at 6.9K as opposed to in the 8Ks. You have Jeff Wilson at 5.9 instead of 7.7. Michael Carter and Rashad White are both still super cheap as well. Kind of feels like unless you're running a 3-person wide receiver stack and a full game stack, it seems like a day you almost got to run 3 running backs in your lineup today. Do you have any differences in your priorities in cash today, Kristi?
No, I think you're exactly right. Kenneth Walker is one of the big differences there. And I think he is just such a great play over on DraftKings today. So I'm glad you brought that up. Someone I definitely want to get a lot of exposure to. Keenan Allen, like you said, as well. And then Geno Smith at just 6K. But yeah, I'm kind of with the same plays as you, TJ. I think over on FanDuel too, I think there's just a lot more opportunity to spread out ownership with quarterback, especially. There's just so many different guys that I like. So yeah, I think you're spot on.
How about you, Dre? A lot of the guys you said you like today, even in tournaments on FanDuel, they're even better plays price-wise on DraftKings. So are there any big differences for you from site to site?
No, there isn't actually. Crap, I messed up on my lineups. But no, there isn't a big difference. I like everyone I mentioned. I like on both sites, and I will play them over and over again. So I'll be getting to a lot of these guys and see pretty much what happens, and hopefully the chips fall where they may. But I'm getting quarterback wise is just the only difference. Like, I'm not getting like the way I'm building lineups today because I'm having a certain style of game script today. I'm not getting a lot of like Lamar Jackson, a lot of Patrick Mahomes, but I'm fine with that because of the route I'm taking with that. But those guys are just not coming up a lot for me in my builds. But I'm really, really high on like Joe Burrow. On the site there, I'm really high on like Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and Geno Smith. That's my top 3 on DK.
There it is. And so final touches before we start getting into some QQs here. We got Jeff Wilson Jr. and Rashad White as the RotoGrinders core plays, but I think with the updates in the Jets, you can add Michael Carter to that list. Those are the 3 running backs you prioritize for cash games. And if you just really don't like your lineup with those 3, I think on FanDuel, maybe you can sacrifice Jeff Wilson for another one of the cheaper guys. But those are definitely your staples. And then we kind of all as a group are liking the Chargers receivers, the Chargers receivers and the Seattle receivers for optimal lineup type settings today. Let's start hitting some QQs. I'm going to look at the NFL crunch time for our premium members on Discord first, and then I'm going to be looking over to YouTube for questions as well there. We got 500 people watching. Let's get this like button up. If we can get that maybe to 200 likes by the time we hit lock, after lock, maybe we can give away free week RG premium, something like that. So YouTube second, Discord first. What's up, ladies and fellas? Favorite stack for a FanDuel single entry? For me personally, I think it's going to be just stacking with Baltimore today. As opposed to just running Lamar Jackson, just running Lamar and Mark Andrews, I want to run him with Demarcus Robinson as well. And then if I'm not rolling with that, I want to just full stack the Chiefs. Throw in not just Juju and Kelsey, but throw in some Sky Moore and some Justin Watson in there as well. How about you, Kristi?
Yep, I like that a lot. I still like the Miami stacks quite a bit too, just because I think they're going to carry a lot lower ownership with some of these other guys being a little bit more popular. And I too like that Kansas City call too. And we talked a little bit about Pacheco. I think he's going to go extremely overlooked. But I mean, they're huge favorites. I think he has the opportunity to get a couple touchdowns. So for the lineups that I don't have all of the receiving, the Kelseys and Juju and what, I want to make sure I have some Pacheco ownership in there too, kind of paired with the Chiefs defense. So those are a couple of my favorites as well.
All right. And what about you, Dre? You're a big Bengals guy today, are you not?
Yes, I love the Bengals a lot. So Joe Burrow is definitely going to be well overweight on him today, a lot. I'm trying to get as much to as I can, just to be a little bit different from Jeff Wilson, because they could score a lot of touchdowns through the air too as well. So trying to get that route as I possibly can, but I'm landing on FanDuel, especially just more like Lamar Jackson. But Joe Burrow's my guy. I'm going to be well over the weight on both sites for sure.
It's making me sad that just with getting hosting and all this news going into this week, my tournament plays that I just love so much, where Isaiah Pacheco was kind of my favorite tournament running back, and I'm not getting him in near as many lineups as I was before. And same with Sky Moore. That $300 difference on FanDuel has me landing on a lot more Justin Watson, and I don't want Justin Watson. I want Sky Moore, and so that's what is getting a little tough for me. But we'll see where it goes. The chips will fall as they do. FanDuel Cash, last piece. You going Michael Carter, Latavius Murray, or Samaje Perine? I think for me, that's Michael Carter by a large margin. In tournaments, I like Perine too, but it's Latavius Murray as a far third.
That's exactly how I was. Yeah, Carter definitely at the top and Perine second for me too. I just don't have a lot of Murray ownership. I mean, I just think there's better plays this week.
I'm about to cut Murray from my lineups, I think, because he's making me nervous now.
Yeah, I agree with you. Dre, in a min price, are you okay with Deshaun Jackson in a GPP?
Oh, yes. That guy, that's all he needs is just one fly route, one go route. That's all he needs.
100%. FanDuel single entry, Garrett Wilson or Elijah Moore. I feel like that's got to be Garrett Wilson by a very large margin.
Yeah.
Especially because he's not going to get much ownership on FanDuel where he's up at 6K. Just keep in mind on that one, it's supposed to be like pouring rain in that game today.
It's supposed to be raining a lot here, so 70% chance easily. So just be careful but they can still don't think it dunks. That's why I like more so Conklin a lot in tournaments.
Deebo Samuel officially in for this game today. Gonna take it over to the YouTube chat. Yes, going over to the YouTube chat here, see if I can roll a little bit up. FanDuel Cash, Geno Smith and George Kittle, or Lamar Jackson and what tight end in the 5K range? I think that has to be Lamar and Gerald Everett. Kristi, what do you think?
Yep, Lamar and Gerald Everett. That's exactly what I was going to say too. Those are the plays for sure for Cash.
Dre, in a tournament, Randall Cobb, Demarcus Robinson, or Nico Collins? I guess that must be a season-long question because the Packers are not on the slate, and therefore the answer is Demarcus Robinson.
Yeah, probably Demarcus or Nico, but most likely Demarcus.
Kittle getting no love, and San Francisco is trying to win these games. What do we think of George Kittle today in tournaments?
Not against that linebacking core. That's the only thing. Saints don't give up a lot to tight ends.
I agree with you. I think there's going to be it's like you said, maybe a Brandon Ayuk day if you want to play a pass catcher. I would play I would play Jets DST in the flex today if I can. That's kind of funny. Josh Palmer for tournaments. Thoughts on Kyron Williams as a viable pay down at flex on FanDuel? Now, this was a sneaky play that I loved earlier in the week. Dre and I talked about it on the FanDuel Friday show, but there's just so much running back value this week that I don't know if we can. What I don't hate about this play is they're likely going to be down, and he's the pass-catching back of the two. They've been raving about him all year, excited to give him the lead back role. Now Henderson's gone. But there are just so many good guys. What I will say is if I was running 1 lineup, 3 lineups, 10 lineups, no, you can't. I don't think you can play Kyron Moore today, but I would probably get 3% of him if I was running 150. FanDuel Cash, Kristi, who's your favorite cheap defense?
If I'm paying way down, I don't mind the Browns defense. If you really need to save money, bottom of the barrel, that's as low as I would go. Otherwise, I think like Carolina or the Broncos defense, at 3,900 are fine too. Maybe even the Bengals, but I've punted a couple with the Browns for sure.
Kyler Murray is kind of getting overlooked today. What do we think about Kyler Murray getting some of his pieces back as he's started losing some other ones? Dre, you look like you're deep in lineup building mode, so I'm going to throw this one to Kristi, and then we'll get back to you.
Yeah, I think he's a good play. I mean, he's always frustrating to watch. You almost have to not watch the game, but he does have upside for DFS purposes. He has rushing upside and things like that. So I think he's a really good GPP play today. Both he and Bird in that game are good plays.
All right, perfect. While Dre gets his last couple lineups in, I'm going to throw a few lightning round questions at you, Kristi, and then we'll get our final thoughts out before lock here. Are you okay with Alvin Kamara to get different from Wilson or a Rams RB?
Honestly,
don't understand that. Do you like Kamara in tournaments today?
I really don't, because I think there's so many good cheap value plays that I think that the upside is there. I just don't think he's necessary, and he can be, as we've seen too, he doesn't always have some of the upside that we're used to seeing with him. So for me, I'm sticking with the cheap guys this week at RB.
I believe in Alvin Kamara. I don't believe in the Saints offense as a whole right now. So we don't really love them. We don't really love the Rams RBs, running backs like we've been talking about. We prefer other ways of getting different here. The running back chalk is good chalk today. Squirrel brought up a good point that if you want to get difference today in tournaments, this is good running back chalk. Just simply don't play the Chiefs or the Jets defense, and you're going to be very different than everybody else. Mm-hmm. DraftKings cash, Treylon Burks or Nico Collins?
I'd go Treylon Burks.
Single entry, Corey Davis or Garrett Wilson? That is Garrett Wilson. Who do you like, Mike Evans or Tyler Lockett?
I would go Tyler Lockett.
FanDuel cash, Samaje Perine or James Conner?
I think for cash, it's James Conner if you can get there. But I do like them both.
Yeah, I like it. For me, from a point per dollar standpoint, it's Perine. But if I have that extra $400, I would use it to get up to James Conner, especially if I have a Charger somewhere in my lineup already. 3 minutes left to lock here. Dre, how those lineups doing? Do you got any hot takes before the lock here? What's going to win us a GPP?
Geno Smith, game stack, or Joe Burrow. In my opinion, I'm just trying to get them in actually right now. Had to update them because I didn't have no Conklin on DK, and I was very upset about that.
I want to make sure I end up getting that team in that we were talking about earlier, where I said, do I want Jackson with do I want to pair him with Zay Jones, Sky Moore, or Matt Collins? I think the answer is I kind of just want to put all three of those lineups in somewhere. Kristi, how about you? What is your just favorite play on the slate here 3 minutes before lock?
Favorite play on the slate, to me, I do really like Jeff Wilson. I like a lot of those cheap running backs, more so on DK because he's really, really cheap there. But I also like Rashad White too. I just really love those running backs this week. I think it's good chalk.
Dre, can you play the Texans defense in a Millie Maker today? And what are your thoughts on a Trenton Irwin Burrow stack on DraftKings?
Of who? Trent?
I honestly don't know who that is.
Yeah, I don't know who that is either. I need more context of who that is. So I know.
And so, I mean, hey, if you're going to play somebody that we don't know who they are so Trenton Irwin is projected for 6 points. He got on the blitz, and he got how many targets last week? 4 targets last week without Jamar Chase, and he's at bare minimum 3K. So yeah, I think you can play him with Joe Burrow as a full stack. I think that's kind of fine. And then FanDuel single entry, Juwan Johnson and Josh Palmer, or Mark Andrews and Garrett Wilson. I think that would be Andrews and Garrett Wilson for me. How about you, Kristi?
Yeah, same. I'd go Andrews and Wilson as well. I like Andrews a lot this week.
Jets defense or Broncos? In a vacuum, it is Jets by a mile, but the Broncos will be lower owned. FanDuel, Trey Burks or Garrett Wilson?
I probably
Traylon
still
Burks or Garrett Wilson.
I'd still go Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I'd probably still go Garrett as well.
Me too. See if we can get a last-minute YouTube. FanDuel Cash, Zay Jones or Devin Duvernay. That is Zay Jones for me. You're looking at you might be in the same spot as I am. And then that is all of the questions.
Oh man, I got
We did it.
And Jalen Waddle. We're going to T. Higgins today. I have
1 minute left till lock, and we have hit all of the questions. We got our lineups in. Great work, team.
Woo! I got it in. Oh gosh. I just got what I wanted in, and I'm hoping it's the right thing. Well, it should be the right thing.
I went back to Discord and we had those extra couple QQs, and so I wasn't able to get those extra little lineups in with that's my exact same cash team, but with Hollins and Sky Moore in there as well. But that's all right. It's crazy how these slates line up. I had a lineup on Friday when Dre and I were doing the FanDuel Friday show that I was basically sure I was going to carry all the way into this week. And that lineup had Lamar Jackson, Samaje Perine, Jeff Wilson Jr., and it also had DK Metcalf, Keenan Allen, and it had Sky Moore and Isaiah Pacheco. And Pacheco, Moore, Demarcus Robinson, and even a guy like Kyron Williams. These were some of my favorite tournament plays this week. And now they're players that I'm only getting to in very small bunches. But we got an exciting week ahead of us. We all want to get out of here and watch some football. Hit the like button on your way out. We're almost at 100 likes here. So make sure you hit that like button and get us up there. Good luck this week. Like Dre said, we hope to see you at the top of the leaderboards this week. Dre and I are going to be back for some NBA crunch time later in the day. Let's win some money. On behalf of my good friends, Kristi, a.k.a. Krayton, Dre_Drizzy. My name is TJ Zwarych, and we will be back for some NFL crunch time next week and some NBA crunch time later today. Peace.